The polished marble floors of City Hall reflect the bright afternoon sunlight streaming in through tall glass windows. Elijah Turner, the quiet middle-aged janitor, moves methodically across the lobby with his mop, head down as always, staying invisible the way he's learned to survive. The smell of floor wax lingers in the air, mixing with the faint aroma of coffee from the reception desk. This is just another afternoon shift, until the sound of heavy boots and coarse laughter shatters the stillness. Officer Mark Davis steps into the lobby, flanked by two other uniformed officers who clearly enjoy whatever joke he's about to deliver. Davis, known among the staff for his smug grin and sharp tongue, spots Elijah immediately. His eyes narrow, a predator catching sight of easy prey. "Well, well, look who we have here," he says loudly, making sure his voice echoes across the room. The other officers chuckle, glancing between Davis and Elijah like an audience waiting for a show. Elijah keeps working, focusing on the mop strokes, pretending not to hear. But Davis is the kind of man who can't stand being ignored. He strides closer, the sound of his boots slapping against the marble. "Tell me, janitor," he says, drawing out the title like an insult. "You ever play piano?" His tone drips with sarcasm, but his voice is loud enough to get the attention of the clerks and aides scattered around the lobby. Heads start to turn. In the far corner of the lobby sits a gleaming black grand piano, a piece usually reserved for formal events or visiting musicians during City Hall galas. Elijah's eyes flick toward it for just a second before dropping back to the mop bucket. "I'm working, sir," he says quietly, hoping that will be the end of it. But Davis doesn't back off. He steps right into Elijah's space, grabs the mop from his hands, and leans it against the wall. "No, you're not," Davis says with a thin smile. "You're going to give us a little performance. I think the mayor could use some entertainment." The condescension in his voice is impossible to miss. Across the lobby, Mayor Robert Lang sits at a long conference table, going over papers with his staff. At the sound of Davis's remark, the mayor glances up, mildly curious. A couple of staffers pull out their phones, sensing this might be worth recording. Elijah stands still for a moment, weighing his options. Saying no would only escalate things. Saying yes feels like walking into a trap, but with every eye in the lobby on him, he realizes Davis has left him no choice. He walks slowly toward the piano, feeling the burn of humiliation in his chest with each step. The air seems thicker, the sounds of shuffling papers and low murmurs fading until all he hears are his own footsteps. He sits on the bench, his hands hovering uncertainly over the keys. Davis leans against the side of the piano, arms crossed, watching like a man who already knows the punchline to his own cruel joke. "Well," Davis says, "we're waiting." Elijah draws in a slow breath, the muscles in his back tightening. He hasn't touched a piano in years, not since life tore that part of him away. But muscle memory is a stubborn thing. He presses a key, soft, tentative, and then another. The sound is pure, cutting through the stillness. The notes connect, forming the beginning of a melody that is both delicate and deliberate. At first, the lobby remains still out of politeness. Then something shifts. The chords deepen, the melody swells, and the room falls into a hush. Conversations die. The rustle of paper stops. Even the mayor's pen hovers mid-air, his attention drawn to the man at the piano. Elijah's hands move more confidently now, coaxing emotion out of the instrument as if the keys themselves are telling his story. The piece is not cheerful. It's layered with shadows, carrying the weight of pain, loss, and something unspoken. People exchange glances, sensing that this isn't just a performance, it's a confession without words. Davis's grin starts to fade. He shifts his stance, glancing at the mayor, who is now leaning forward in his chair. One of the aides, still holding their phone, has stopped recording without realizing it, caught up in the moment. The music climbs, then drops into a haunting minor key that sends a chill through the listeners. Elijah doesn't look at the crowd. He doesn't look at Davis. He's somewhere else entirely, in a place only he knows, where the piano was once his refuge, before it became a reminder of everything he lost. The final passage builds, each note a sharp edge cutting into the silence until it resolves into one long, trembling chord. The sound lingers, hanging in the air as if the walls themselves are holding onto it. For several seconds, no one moves. No one breathes. Then, from the back of the room, a single pair of hands begins to clap. Another joins in. Soon the applause swells, echoing off the marble. The mayor stands, clapping slowly but firmly, his expression open and unguarded. That, he says, voice carrying over the noise, was beautiful. Elijah rises from the bench, giving only the smallest nod before turning back toward his mop and bucket. His heart is still racing, his fingers tingling from the contact with the keys. The humiliation Davis intended has twisted into something else entirely, but as Elijah reaches for his mop, he catches the officer's eyes, cold, narrowed, calculating. Davis isn't clapping. Davis isn't smiling, and Elijah knows without a doubt that whatever just happened here is far from over. In the corner, the aide who kept recording lowers their phone and checks the screen. The video is already uploading. Within minutes, it will be online. Within hours, the whole city will see it. But for now, in this moment, Elijah simply dips the mop back into the bucket, pretending nothing has changed. Davis turns to leave, his boots echoing sharply in the silence left after the applause. But there's a stiffness in his shoulders, a tension that says he's already planning his next move. Elijah doesn't watch him go. He doesn't have to. He can feel the storm coming. The applause fades, but its echo lingers in the high ceilings of City Hall. People start to return to their work, though more than a few still glance toward the janitor who just silenced a room with nothing more than a piano. Elijah doesn't look at them. He focuses on his mop, pushing the dirty water across the marble, letting the rhythm of the strokes calm the adrenaline still rushing through him. On the other side of the lobby, Mayor Robert Lang remains standing, his hands resting on the table in front of him. His eyes aren't on the documents anymore. They're fixed on Elijah. There's something unreadable in his expression, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and something else, something heavier. He speaks quietly to his chief of staff, who nods and steps away. Davis, however, hasn't moved from where he's standing near the exit. His jaw is tight, and his hands are balled into fists at his sides. He didn't just lose control of the room, he lost the joke. What was supposed to humiliate the janitor ended up elevating him, and Davis knows exactly how quickly that kind of moment can spread. The sound of the piano is still in his ears, but so is the clapping, and it burns him. One of the aides near the piano is reviewing the footage on their phone. Elijah's performance looks even more striking on video, the camera catching the light across the keys, the way his hands moved with precision and emotion. Without hesitation, they upload it to their social media. Within minutes, likes and comments begin to flood in. Elijah notices none of this, but he notices the sudden presence at his side, the mayor's chief of staff, a tall man in a navy suit. "Mr. Turner?" he says politely. Elijah straightens, unsure whether to answer. "The mayor would like to speak with you. Just for a moment." Elijah hesitates, glancing toward Davis. The officer's glare hasn't softened. If anything, it's sharpened, as if daring him to step out of line. Still, Elijah nods and follows the chief of staff toward the conference table. Mayor Lang smiles faintly as Elijah approaches. "That was unexpected," he says. His voice is calm, but there's a sincerity that catches Elijah off guard. "You've got a gift, Mr. Turner. I didn't know City Hall's floors were being mopped by a concert pianist." "I'm just a janitor, sir," Elijah replies quietly, keeping his eyes on the polished surface of the table. "Not anymore," the mayor says. "At least, not in the eyes of the people who just heard you. And believe me, that includes me." There's a pause. "I'd like to hear more sometime. Maybe at a public event." Elijah's instinct is to say no. Music has been locked away in the past for a long time, locked away for reasons he doesn't want to unpack in the middle of a workday. But before he can answer, a movement in the corner of his eye draws his attention. Davis has stepped closer, pretending to browse a bulletin board, but his eyes are locked on Elijah. "I'll think about it," Elijah says finally. The mayor nods, sensing the conversation is over for now. As Elijah turns to leave, a sudden vibration buzzes in the pocket of his coveralls. It's his old flip phone, the one he keeps mostly for emergencies. He flips it open and sees a name he hasn't in years. Mr. Carlyle, the man who taught him to play, who once believed Elijah could be more than just a boy with fast fingers. "Elijah?" The voice is older, rougher, but unmistakable. "I just saw a video online. That was you, wasn't it?" Elijah glances toward the lobby entrance, where Davis is now talking in low tones to the other officers. "I guess so," Elijah says. "You still have it," Carlyle says with quiet pride. "Listen, I've got a spot open for a performance at the community center tomorrow night. Nothing fancy, just a good piano, a good crowd. I think you should do it." The thought makes Elijah's stomach tighten. Tomorrow night, less than 30 hours from now. The last time he played in front of a crowd, it ended in disaster. But before he can give an excuse, Carlisle adds, "You don't have to decide right now, just think about it. People need to hear you again." Elijah hangs up, tucking the phone away, but his mind is spinning. He barely notices Davis stepping into his path until the officer is right in front of him. "Enjoy your little moment, Turner?" Davis asks, voice low but sharp. "Because that's all it is. A moment. It won't last." Elijah meets his eyes for the first time. "Maybe not," he says, "but you'll remember it." For a heartbeat, they stand there, neither willing to look away. Then Davis smirks and steps aside. "Get back to work," he says, but there's an edge in his tone that wasn't there before. A warning. By the time Elijah finishes his shift, the video has been shared thousands of times. People he's never met are commenting, praising, asking who he is. Some mention the mayor's reaction. Others talk about the emotion in the music. A few even say the performance brought them to tears. As he leaves City Hall, the late afternoon sun hits his face, and for a brief moment, he feels something he hasn't in years. Possibility. But when he glances across the street, he spots a familiar police cruiser parked at the curb. Davis is behind the wheel, one hand resting on the steering wheel, the other tapping slowly against the door. Watching. Elijah keeps walking, forcing himself not to look back. But deep down, he knows the officer's eyes will be on him long after today. The sun is still bright as Elijah walks down the block, but the warmth on his face doesn't erase the weight sitting in his chest. The sound of his own footsteps on the cracked sidewalk is drowned out by the low purr of an idling engine behind him. He doesn't have to turn around to know Davis is following. The police cruiser rolls forward slowly, keeping pace, its shadow stretching long beside him. Elijah forces himself to keep walking, resisting the urge to speed up. He passes the corner cafe where people are gathered at outdoor tables, talking and laughing, unaware of the silent tension playing out a few feet away. The hum of conversation and the clink of coffee cups feel surreal against the quiet menace of the cruiser. A block later, the car pulls ahead just enough to cut him off. Davis steps out, closing the door with deliberate slowness. The sun catches the badge on his chest, making it gleam like a warning. "We need to have a talk," he says. "I'm off the clock," Elijah replies evenly, keeping his voice calm. "That little stunt you pulled back there?" Davis steps closer, his boots crunching on the gravel near the curb. "You think you embarrassed me? You think that's gonna fly?" "I didn't pull anything," Elijah says. "You asked me to play." Davis's mouth twitches, not quite a smile. "Yeah, and you turned it into some kind of sob story that had the mayor tearing up like a baby. Now people are talking about you." His tone sharpens on the last two words. "That's a problem." The cafe's door swings open and a couple steps outside. Davis lowers his voice, but his eyes never soften. "You need to stay in your lane, Turner. Mop the floors, empty the trash, keep your head down like you're supposed to, because if you don't, I can make things complicated." Elijah studies his face. There's no bluff there. Davis means every word. "Is that a threat?" he asks quietly. Davis takes a step back, spreading his arms slightly. "Just advice. I'd hate to see you lose your job. Or worse." He walks back to the cruiser, sliding in behind the wheel. The car idles for a moment, then pulls away, leaving the faint smell of exhaust in the air. Elijah stands there for a few seconds, letting the tension drain from his shoulders before continuing home. By the time he reaches his small apartment on the third floor of an aging brick building, the video of his performance has exploded online. His old flip phone buzzes repeatedly with calls and messages, most from numbers he doesn't recognize. Friends from years past, old coworkers, even strangers are reaching out. Someone from a local newspaper leaves a voicemail asking for an interview. Elijah sets the phone down on the kitchen counter, staring at it like it's some strange animal that's wandered into his home. He pours himself a glass of water, sits at the small table by the window, and tries to focus on something normal. The sound of kids playing in the street below, the distant rumble of a bus. But even here, in the quiet of his own apartment, Davis's words stick in his head. "Stay in your lane." The knock at the door is sharp and unexpected. Elijah's first thought is Davis, but when he opens it, he finds a man in his 60s standing there, holding a well-worn leather briefcase. It takes him a moment to recognize Mr. Carlisle without the sharp suit and neat hair from years ago. Now his hair is silver, his tie loosened, but his eyes are exactly the same. "Elijah," Carlisle says, smiling faintly, "I was in the neighborhood, thought I'd see you in person." They sit at the table and Carlisle wastes no time. I meant what I said on the phone. That performance today, it mattered. People could feel it. You can't just walk away from that. Elijah shakes his head. It's not that simple. You don't know what's going on. Carlisle leans forward. Then tell me, let me help. Elijah hesitates, glancing toward the window. There's an officer, Davis. He's not happy about what happened. He's making it clear I should keep my head down. Carlisle frowns. And you're going to let him scare you into silence? You don't understand, Elijah says, his voice low. Men like him, they don't just let things go. My father… He stops himself, jaw tightening. It doesn't matter. It matters if it's still controlling you, Carlisle says firmly. Look, you've got a chance to change the way people see you, to change the story, but you have to step up. The conviction in Carlisle's voice is hard to ignore. Elijah leans back, staring at the scuffed tabletop. The thought of playing again in front of a crowd terrifies him, but there's a pull, a spark that's been smoldering ever since his hands touched those keys earlier today. Before he can answer, Carlisle opens his briefcase and pulls out a crisp flyer. Tomorrow night, Community Center, the piano's ready. All you have to do is show up. Elijah takes the flyer, running his fingers over the paper. The time, 7:00 p.m., is printed in bold letters, less than 30 hours away. After Carlisle leaves, Elijah stands at the window, watching the streetlights flicker on as dusk settles in. Across the road, under the shadow of a street lamp, a familiar shape leans against a car. Even from here, he can tell it's Davis. The officer isn't doing anything, just standing there, watching. Elijah lets the curtain fall back into place. His heart is steady, but his mind is racing. Davis isn't going to let this go. And if Elijah agrees to play tomorrow night, he knows the officer will be there, waiting for any chance to turn it into something ugly. But as he looks again at the flyer in his hand, a thought pushes through the fear. Maybe that's exactly why he has to do it. The street outside Elijah's apartment has shifted from the warm glow of late afternoon to the dim haze of early evening. Streetlights blink to life, casting pale halos over the cracked pavement. The sound of kids playing has faded, replaced by the occasional honk from a passing car and the murmur of televisions through open windows. Elijah stands by the sink, staring at the flyer Carlisle left behind. The bold letters seem louder than the room itself. Tomorrow, 7:00 p.m., Community Center Piano Night. He turns the paper over, but it's blank. No instructions, no promises, just an invitation and a time. He sets it on the counter, but his eyes keep returning to it. In his gut, he knows what it means. If he says yes, there's no hiding anymore. The moment at City Hall will turn into something bigger, something Davis can't control quietly, and that means Davis won't stay quiet either. The buzz of his old flip phone on the counter makes him jump. The caller ID flashes a number he doesn't recognize. He hesitates, then flips it open. Hello? Elijah Turner? The voice is brisk, professional, but warm. This is Jenna Miller from the Capital Times. I just saw a video of you playing at City Hall today. It's all over social media. People are talking, and frankly, it's the kind of story our readers would love. Would you be willing to give a short interview? Elijah exhales slowly. I'm not sure that's a good idea. Why not? Jenna presses. You clearly have a gift, and from what I've seen, the reaction you got was, well, extraordinary. Even the mayor was moved. Don't you think people deserve to know who you are? The question hangs in the air. Elijah glances toward the window where the shadow of a man leaning against a car has been replaced by an empty sidewalk. Davis is gone for now, but Elijah knows he's never really gone. I'll think about it, he says finally, and ends the call. He pours himself some coffee, though the bitterness does little to settle the unease in his stomach. Sitting at the small table, he lets his mind drift back to the piano at City Hall, the way the keys felt under his hands, the weight of the final chord hanging in the air, the sudden quiet before the applause. It wasn't just music. It was the first time in years he felt like himself. A sharp knock pulls him out of his thoughts. This one is louder than Carlisle's earlier, more impatient. Elijah crosses the room and opens the door cautiously. Standing there is Marlene, his neighbor from across the hall, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a warm smile. I saw you online, she says without preamble. Didn't know we had a celebrity living here. She holds out a Tupperware container. Brought you some stew. Figured you'd need something real to eat if you're gonna be famous. Elijah chuckles softly, taking the container. I'm not famous. Not yet, she says, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. But I'm telling you that video's everywhere. My sister in North Carolina sent it to me, and she didn't even know you live here. People are saying you made the mayor cry. Is that true? Elijah shrugs. Maybe. I wasn't looking. Marlene studies him for a moment, then lowers her voice. You be careful, though. I've seen that cop around. The one who made you play. He's been circling the block. I know, Elijah says quietly. He's not happy about how things turned out. Well, he can stay unhappy. You didn't do anything wrong, Marlene says firmly. If you ask me, you should play again. Show him he can't scare you. Her words echo Carlisle's, and now Elijah feels the walls of his small kitchen closing in, not from fear, but from the realization that more and more people are pushing him toward the same choice. After she leaves, Elijah heats the stew, eating mechanically while his eyes keep drifting to the flyer. He thinks about the community center's old upright piano, about the small stage with its worn curtains. He's been there before. Years ago, back when he still believed music could lead somewhere. That was before his father's death, before the long shadow of men like Davis fell over everything. The thought is interrupted by the sharp trill of his phone again. This time, it's Carlisle. Elijah, the old man says, not bothering with a greeting. I just spoke to a few people. The community center's event tomorrow? It's bigger than I thought. Local reporters, maybe even a TV crew. If you come, you won't just be playing for a small crowd, you'll be playing for the city. Elijah grips the phone tighter. That's exactly what worries me. I know, Carlisle says gently, but that's also why it matters. You can't let Davis define you. You can't let fear keep you mopping floors when you were born to play. After the call, Elijah stands by the window again. The street is quiet now, bathed in the amber glow of the streetlights. For the first time since the City Hall performance, he doesn't see Davis's car, but the absence feels temporary, like the calm before a storm. He picks up the flyer one last time, holding it in both hands. The decision isn't final, but something in him shifts, a small but undeniable step toward yes. He folds the paper neatly and slips it into his jacket pocket. Outside, a lone car passes, its headlights sweeping across the room. Elijah turns off the kitchen light, leaving the apartment in shadow. Tomorrow will come fast, and if he does this, he knows the day won't end without a fight, on the keys, and maybe beyond. The stew sits half-eaten on the counter, forgotten. Elijah has moved to the couch, the television on but the volume low, casting flickering light across the small living room. He isn't really watching. His mind keeps circling the same thoughts, Carlisle's voice urging him to play, Marlene's warning about Davis, and the weight of the folded flyer in his jacket pocket. Every time he shifts, he feels it there, like it's waiting for an answer. A sudden flash of headlights cuts across the wall, not the steady pass of a car driving through, but the slow sweep of a vehicle pulling up and stopping. Elijah's stomach tightens. He gets up, crossing to the window, keeping the curtain just barely parted. Parked directly across the street is the same police cruiser. The driver's side window is down, and even in the dim orange glow of the streetlight, there's no mistaking the shape behind the wheel. Davis is back. He's not moving, not reading, not on his phone, just sitting there, eyes fixed in the direction of Elijah's building. The idling engine sends a low, steady hum through the night air. It's not a conversation. It's a statement. I'm still here. Elijah lets the curtain fall back into place. His pulse is steady, but there's an unease in his chest that makes it hard to breathe normally. He paces the small room, thinking of ways to ignore it, but the presence outside makes every second stretch longer. He wonders if he should call someone. Carlisle, maybe even the mayor's office, but the idea of explaining Davis's watch feels like feeding a fire that's already spreading. The knock on the door comes without warning. 3 firm raps, not impatient but deliberate. Elijah freezes. Another knock follows, louder this time. He moves to the door slowly, pressing his eye to the peephole. It's not Davis. It's a young man he doesn't recognize, maybe early 20s, holding a phone in one hand and a camera bag slung over his shoulder. Elijah opens the door a crack. Mr. Turner? The man asks, polite but eager. I'm with Capital City now. We're doing a feature on local talent and your video is blowing up online. I was hoping to get a quick interview, maybe even record you playing something. Elijah's first instinct is to shut the door, but behind the reporter, across the street, he catches sight of Davis still sitting in the cruiser. It's almost as if the officer is waiting to see what he'll do. Elijah straightens, then shakes his head. Not tonight. The reporter looks disappointed but nods. If you change your mind, here's my card. He slips a small rectangle of paper through the gap before turning and heading down the hallway. When Elijah closes the door, he doesn't go back to the couch. Instead, he goes to his bedroom closet, reaches for a shoebox on the top shelf, and brings it down to the bed. Inside, wrapped in a faded cloth, is a stack of old sheet music, some printed, some handwritten. On top is a photograph. A teenage Elijah seated at a piano, his father's hand resting proudly on his shoulder. The sight hits him like a punch. He remembers that day vividly. A small recital in a church basement. His father dressed in his only suit, beaming as Elijah played. That night, his father told him, "Son, when you play, you make people listen. That's a power most folks never get. Don't waste it." 2 years later, his father was gone, shot during a routine police stop. No charges were filed. Elijah never played in public again. He puts the photo back in the box, but keeps the sheet music in his hands. The feel of the paper, the faint pencil marks from long ago rehearsals, it stirs something in him. For the first time in years, he wants to practice. He moves to the small upright piano in the corner of the living room. It's old and out of tune, but the keys still work. He sits down, sets the music on the stand, and lets his fingers rest on the keys. Outside, he can still hear the faint hum of the cruiser's engine. He starts to play softly, the melody uneven at first. But as his hands remember the patterns, the sound smooths, deepens. It's not the City Hall piano, but it's enough. The music fills the apartment, pushing back the weight of Davis's silent watch. After nearly half an hour, he stops, letting the final chord fade. He feels lighter somehow, even with the knowledge that tomorrow will bring more attention and more trouble. He stands, closing the lid gently, and goes to the window. The cruiser is gone, just an empty patch of street under the dim streetlight. But Elijah knows that doesn't mean Davis is finished. If anything, it means he's working on the next move. Elijah locks the door, double-checks the windows, and returns to the couch. The flyer is still in his jacket pocket. He pulls it out, sets it on the coffee table, and stares at it until the words blur. Tomorrow, 7 p.m. Finally, he speaks into the quiet apartment, as if saying it out loud will make it real. "I'm going." The first light of morning spills through the blinds, striping the living room in pale gold. Elijah wakes on the couch, stiff from a restless night. The flyer still lies on the coffee table where he left it, its bold black letters a reminder that today is the day. He rubs his eyes, trying to shake the heaviness from his mind. It's not just nerves, it's the knowledge that Davis won't let this happen without a fight. The apartment is quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the street below. Elijah moves to the kitchen, pours himself a mug of coffee, and stands by the window. The street is empty, no cruiser in sight, but the absence feels temporary. He knows Davis is kind. Sometimes the threat is more unnerving when you can't see it. At 8:15, his phone rings. The screen flashes Carlisle. "Morning," the old man says. "We're on for tonight. I've already been down to the community center. The piano's in good shape, stage is clean, everything's set. Just be there by 6 for a quick run-through." Elijah takes a slow sip of coffee. "And if someone tries to make sure it doesn't happen?" Carlisle pauses on the other end. "You think Davis is going to try something?" "I know he is," Elijah says. "He's not the type to let things slide, especially not after yesterday." "Then we'll be ready," Carlisle says, his voice firm. "You just focus on the music." After hanging up, Elijah heads to the bedroom to get dressed. He chooses simple clothes, dark slacks, a plain shirt. He tells himself it's just another day, but the tension in his shoulders says otherwise. By 9 a.m., Davis is already moving. Across town in the shadow of the community center, he stands with 2 other officers near the loading dock. The side door is propped open, and inside, the dim stage lights reveal the grand piano set for tonight's performance. Davis's eyes narrow. "Just make it inconvenient," he says to one of the officers. "Nothing obvious. A few loose connections in the sound system, maybe tamper with the lights. Enough to rattle him." The officers exchange uneasy glances. One of them, a younger man with close-cropped hair, clears his throat. "If this gets traced back—" "It won't," Davis snaps. "We're just making sure the spotlight doesn't stay where it doesn't belong." By the time Elijah arrives at City Hall for his regular shift, Davis is gone from the community center. But his shadow is everywhere. The air in the lobby feels heavier today. the eyes of staff lingering on Elijah a little longer, whispers following him as he moves. Word has spread about the performance, the mayor's reaction, and tonight's event. Around noon, while Elijah is mopping near the east hallway, a staffer approaches. It's Jenna Miller, the reporter who called him last night. She's dressed sharply, her press badge clipped to her jacket. "Mr. Turner," she says, offering a polite smile, "I know you said you weren't sure about an interview, but I'll be at the community center tonight. I think people would love to hear your story before they hear you play again." Elijah studies her for a moment. There's no malice in her eyes, only genuine curiosity. "Maybe after," he says. "If it still happens?" "It'll happen," Jenna replies with confidence, "and if anyone tries to stop it, that'll be a bigger story." She hands him her card and walks away, leaving Elijah with the uneasy feeling that tonight could become something much bigger than music. By 2 p.m., Carlisle calls again. His voice is tight. "We've got a problem. The sound crew says some of the wiring was messed with. Lights too. They can fix it, but it'll take time." Elijah closes his eyes, inhaling slowly. "Davis? I can't prove it," Carlisle says, "but I've seen enough to know. Just get here early. We'll work around whatever he's trying to pull." The rest of the afternoon drags. Elijah finishes his shift at 4:30, changes into a clean shirt, and takes the bus toward the community center. The ride is quiet, the city rolling past the window in shades of gray and gold. Every stop feels slower than the last. When he arrives at 5:45, Carlisle is waiting outside, hands shoved into the pockets of his overcoat. "We've got most of it fixed," he says as they head inside. "The piano's fine, lights are stable, sound should hold, but we'll keep a backup mic just in case." The stage smells faintly of dust and old wood. Elijah runs his fingers along the polished edge of the piano, feeling the familiar smoothness beneath his touch. He plays a few test chords. The tone is rich, resonant, alive. For a moment, he forgets about Davis, about the crowd, about everything except the way the notes fill the room. At 6:30, the audience begins to arrive. The low murmur of conversation grows as people take their seats, the sound of coats rustling and programs unfolding. In the back of the room, near the exit, a figure leans against the wall. Elijah doesn't have to look twice to know who it is. Davis, dressed in plain clothes but carrying the same presence, his eyes locked on the stage. Carlisle notices too. "Ignore him," he says quietly. "He's not the one on stage tonight." Elijah nods, but the weight of that stare is hard to shake. He returns to the piano, adjusting the bench, his hands resting lightly on the keys. He knows the first note will set the tone, not just for the performance, but for everything that follows. As the lights dim and the room falls silent, Elijah takes a deep breath. Outside the circle of stage light, Davis remains in shadow, waiting. The low chatter of the audience fades as the last few people take their seats. The warm glow of the stage lights spills across the polished wood floor, casting long shadows into the rows of chairs. Elijah sits at the piano, hands folded in his lap, staring at the keys. The air feels heavy, charged, like the moment before a summer storm. In the second row, a boy leans forward, eyes wide with curiosity. An elderly couple murmurs softly to each other, then quiets as the house lights dim further. From the corner of his vision, Elijah spots Jenna Miller setting up her camera at the side aisle. She catches his eye and gives the smallest nod, as if to say, "You've got this." But further back, near the exit, Davis is still there. Dressed in a casual jacket and jeans, he blends in enough to seem like any other audience member, except for the way he's standing instead of sitting. His arms folded, eyes locked on Elijah like a hunter watching prey. Carlisle steps forward from the wings, taking the small microphone at the edge of the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. We have a special guest, someone whose music touched this city yesterday in a way none of us expected." His voice carries easily in the room. "Please welcome Elijah Turner." The applause rises, warm but expectant. Elijah stands briefly, giving a small nod, then sits again, adjusting the bench. The keys gleam under the lights, their smooth surface reflecting his fingers as he places them in position. He can feel the collective gaze of the crowd on him, the curiosity, the anticipation, the quiet hope that whatever they felt from that City Hall performance wasn't just a fluke. He closes his eyes and draws in a slow, steady breath. When he exhales, his hands move. The first note is soft, almost hesitant, like the start of a whispered conversation. It hangs in the air, met with absolute silence from the audience. Then the second note joins it, followed by a gentle cascade of chords that begin to weave a pattern. Elijah plays with deliberate control at first, letting the melody unfold slowly, each phrase measured and clear. The sound swells, richer and deeper, filling the space until it seems to vibrate in the floorboards. In the third row, a woman presses a tissue to her lips. In the back, Davis shifts his stance but doesn't look away. The room seems to shrink around the music, drawing everyone closer, as if the walls themselves are leaning in to listen. Elijah feels the tension in his shoulders loosen as the piece takes shape. His fingers move with the precision of muscle memory, but his heart is driving the rhythm now. He's not just playing notes, he's speaking without words, telling a story of pain carried too long and the fragile hope that somehow survives it. Halfway through, a sudden flicker passes over the stage. The lights dim for a split second, then return. A faint murmur ripples through the audience, but Elijah keeps playing. Carlisle, standing in the wings, glances sharply toward the control booth, where a technician is already checking the board. Davis's eyes narrow, but he stays where he is. The melody builds, moving into a minor key, the emotion deepening. Elijah's pulse matches the rise and fall of the phrases, his breathing syncing with the tempo. The music feels like it's pouring out of some locked room inside him, one he hasn't dared open in years. Another flicker. This time the sound system crackles faintly. The backup mic on the piano stand picks it up, a faint hiss beneath the music. But Elijah doesn't falter. If anything, he leans into the keys harder, his movements sharper, his focus absolute. From the corner of the room, Jenna raises her camera higher, catching the moment his expression shifts. Not just concentration, but defiance. The piece turns again, lifting out of the darkness into a brighter refrain. The audience seems to lean forward collectively, caught in the pull of the change. It's not a triumphant brightness, but something more fragile, like dawn breaking after a long night. In the back, Davis finally moves. He takes a step toward the aisle, eyes still on Elijah, but Carlisle is already there, intercepting him with a hand on his arm. The exchange is quiet, almost invisible to the crowd, but tense. Davis doesn't push past, yet. Elijah reaches the final passage. The chords swell, each one a step closer to the resolution. His right hand moves in fluid arpeggios, while his left anchors the harmony, the sound blooming and then settling. The last note is struck and held, ringing pure and steady until it fades into the air. Silence follows, thick, unbroken, for 3 long seconds. Then the room erupts in applause, rising to a standing ovation. Elijah stands, bowing slightly. The noise is almost overwhelming, but he doesn't look for Davis in the crowd. He doesn't have to. He knows the officer saw every second of it. Carlisle steps back to the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, Elijah Turner." The ovation continues as Elijah leaves the bench and moves toward the wings. Jenna catches him as he passes. "That was incredible," she says over the applause. "The whole city's going to see this." Elijah only nods, but there's a flicker of a smile on his lips. For the first time in a long while, he feels the weight shift, just slightly, off his shoulders. But as he steps into the shadows backstage, Carlisle leans in close. "Stay sharp, he's not done." Elijah glances toward the audience. Through the crowd still clapping, he spots Davis slipping out the side door. The look on the officer's face isn't defeat, it's planning. And Elijah knows that whatever comes next, tonight's performance was just the opening move. The applause still echoes faintly from the main hall as Elijah lingers backstage, the adrenaline from his performance slowly ebbing. Carlisle is speaking with the stage manager near the curtain, but his eyes keep flicking toward the side entrance where Davis slipped out. The old man's jaw is set, his expression telling Elijah everything without a word. This isn't over. Elijah moves toward the green room, intending to sit for a moment, maybe drink some water before deciding whether to face the crowd again. But before he reaches the door, Jenna Miller steps in his path. Her camera hangs at her side now, her eyes bright with the rush of what she just captured. "You have no idea how powerful that was," she says. "I need to get your words on record while it's fresh. Just a few questions: why you played, what the song meant to you." Elijah raises a hand gently. "Not right now. Later, maybe." Jenna doesn't push, but she studies him for a beat longer. Something's going on, isn't it? He doesn't answer, but his glance toward the side door is enough for her to follow his gaze. She doesn't say anything, just nods slightly, as if tucking the information away. From the lobby, muffled by the thick backstage walls, comes the sound of people gathering coats, chatting, making plans for after the show. Elijah hears Carlisle's voice somewhere behind him. "Stay here, I'll check the parking lot." Minutes pass. The stage lights dim fully, the main doors closing one by one. The building feels different now, emptier but somehow more tense. The staff moves about, stacking chairs, coiling cords, their conversation subdued. Carlisle returns through the side door, his overcoat pulled tight. "He's out there," he says quietly, standing near the far corner of the lot, talking to a couple of guys I don't recognize. They're not here for the music. Elijah's stomach knots. "Police?" Carlisle shakes his head. "Plain clothes, could be friends, could be something else. But whatever it is, it's not casual." Before Elijah can respond, the side door opens again. This time it's Marlene, his neighbor, still in her coat, a scarf wrapped around her neck. She must have slipped in through the crowd after the show. "There you are," she says, slightly out of breath. "I saw him outside. He's been watching the building since before the show ended. I didn't want you walking out there alone." The fact that two people have now come in with the same warning makes Elijah's skin prickle. He glances toward the hallway that leads to the front lobby. "Maybe I'll go out that way instead." "Good," Carlisle says. "I'll walk you to your car." "I don't have a car," Elijah says. "I took the bus." Carlisle swears under his breath. "Then we'll get you a ride, Jenna." The reporter appears almost instantly, as if she's been hovering nearby. "I've got my car in the lot. I can take him home." Elijah hesitates. He's not sure he wants Jenna knowing exactly where he lives, but the idea of walking to the bus stop under Davis's gaze is worse. "All right," he says finally. The four of them, Elijah, Carlisle, Marlene, and Jenna, move together toward the front of the building. The night air outside is cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of rain. The lot is lit by tall lamps, each casting a circle of pale light. Elijah scans the shadows automatically. Davis is there, just as they said, leaning against the rear bumper of his cruiser, arms crossed. Two men in dark jackets stand with him, their posture relaxed but watchful. As the group exits the building, Davis straightens. "Nice show, Turner," he calls, his voice carrying easily across the lot. "Crowd ate it up." Elijah keeps walking, not answering. Carlisle positions himself slightly in front, Marlene at his side. Davis takes a slow step forward. "Funny thing though, power flickered during your big moment. Could have been worse. Wires get crossed all the time in old buildings like this." Elijah stops just short of Jenna's car. He turns his head just enough to meet Davis's eyes. "Accidents happen," he says evenly. "But you didn't get the ending you wanted, did you?" Something hard flashes in Davis's expression, but it's gone almost instantly. He smirks. "Oh, Turner, this was just the first act." Carlisle opens the passenger door for Elijah. "Get in," he says quietly. Jenna starts the engine as soon as the doors close. As they pull out, Elijah looks back through the window. Davis is still standing there in the glow of the street lamp, watching the car leave, the two men beside him unmoving. The cruiser remains parked, its headlights off, like a predator conserving energy until the next chase. The ride is silent for several minutes, the city lights sliding past. Finally, Jenna speaks. "Whatever's going on between you two, it's more than a bad request at City Hall. I can see it in the way he looks at you." Elijah stares out the window. "He knew my father." That's all he says, and Jenna doesn't push. But he can feel her curiosity, the way she files the detail away like a puzzle piece she'll need later. When they reach his building, Marlene offers to walk him up, but Elijah shakes his head. "I'll be fine." Inside, the apartment feels smaller than ever. The flyer is still on the table, but now it feels different, not an invitation, but a declaration. Tonight's performance was a win, but Davis's words cling to him. Just the first act. He locks the door, double-checks the chain, and pulls the curtain shut. Somewhere out there, Davis is already planning the next move, and Elijah knows the curtain hasn't even come up on the real fight yet. The hum of Jenna's car fades into the distance, leaving the community center's parking lot cloaked in a strange, tense quiet. The last of the audience has cleared out, save for a few staff members loading equipment into a van near the front entrance. In the far corner, under a broken street lamp that flickers every few seconds, Davis stands with the two men in dark jackets. The dim light cuts across their faces in jagged flashes, enough to reveal the hard lines and watchful eyes of men who've been in trouble before and enjoyed it. Davis's arms are crossed, but his body is angled slightly toward the exit where Elijah's group just departed. "He's spooked," Davis says, his voice low but carrying the weight of certainty. You saw the way he looked back? He knows I'm not done. One of the men, the taller of the two, smirks. You want us to handle it? Not here, Davis replies. Too many eyes. He glances toward the staff at the van, making sure they're still occupied. But tomorrow's different. He'll be riding high after tonight. People like that, they slip. They stop watching their backs. The shorter man leans against the cruiser, lighting a cigarette. The smoke drifts upward, catching the light of the flickering lamp. And what exactly are we doing? Rough him up? Send a message? Davis's smirk is thin and sharp. Something like that. But it's not just about him anymore. The mayor's involved now. The press is circling. If we play this right, Turner's not just humiliated. He's discredited. Nobody listens to him again. The taller man tilts his head. Discredited how? Davis steps closer, lowering his voice. Ever hear of evidence planting? Doesn't take much if you know what you're doing. One call, a routine search, and suddenly the city's favorite janitor isn't so clean. The cigarette crackles as the shorter man takes a drag. Risky. Davis's eyes harden. So is letting him think he can stand on a stage and make me look like a fool. Back inside the community center, Carlisle is still talking to the stage manager, unaware of the conversation unfolding outside. He's focused on packing up the sheet music Elijah used during warm-up, sliding it carefully into a folder. His phone buzzes. It's a text from Marlene. Got him home safe. Davis was still in the lot when we left. Carlisle's jaw tightens. He doesn't reply, just slips the phone back into his pocket. By 8:10 p.m., the staff van pulls out, leaving the parking lot nearly empty. The faint hum of the street beyond the chain-link fence is the only sound. Davis watches the van's taillights disappear, then turns to his two companions. We're done here for tonight. Keep your phones on. They part ways casually, the two men heading toward a beat-up sedan parked near the alley. Davis gets into his cruiser, but he doesn't start the engine right away. Instead, he sits in the dark interior, hands resting on the steering wheel, running through the plan in his head. He knows where Elijah lives, knows his shifts at City Hall, knows the bus routes he takes. Patterns. Everyone has them, and patterns can be exploited. Across town, in his apartment, Elijah sits by the window despite the curtains being drawn. The room is dim except for the soft yellow glow of the lamp beside him. The adrenaline from the performance is gone now, replaced by an uneasy awareness that tonight's victory may have cost him more than he realizes. He replays Davis's parting words in the parking lot, first act, and wonders just how many acts this man is planning. Marlene knocks gently on his door, bringing him back from his thoughts. Just wanted to check in, she says when he opens it. Place looks quiet, no sign of him outside, but I don't think that means much. I know, Elijah says. Thanks for looking out. You should tell somebody, she urges. The mayor, the press, hell, even Carlisle. If this guy's got it in for you, people need to know. Elijah leans against the doorframe. The problem is, the more I talk about him, the more it looks like I'm obsessed. That's how he'll spin it. And people like him, they know how to spin things. Marlene studies him for a moment before nodding reluctantly. Just keep your head up, Elijah. Don't give him an opening. Back at the community center, Davis finally starts the engine. The low rumble of the cruiser echoes off the brick walls as he pulls out of the lot and heads toward the main road. The broken street lamp flickers one last time before going completely dark. In the alley behind the building, the two men in the sedan wait until Davis's taillights vanish, then start their own car. The taller one glances at the other. You really think he's going to go through with it? The driver exhales smoke out the open window. Oh, he'll go through with it. He's the type who doesn't let anything go. And if Turner's dumb enough to stand on another stage, well, we'll be there too. The sedan rolls out of the alley, melting into the city traffic. By 8:30, the parking lot is silent and empty. Just an expanse of cracked asphalt under a sky thick with low clouds. But the stillness is deceptive. Plans have been set in motion here, quiet and deliberate, the kind that don't need to be loud to be dangerous. The hum of the city at night drifts faintly through Elijah's half-open window. Distant traffic, a siren somewhere far off, the low thump of music from a passing car. He's sitting at his small kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee gone lukewarm, the flyer from earlier folded neatly beside it. His hands rest around the mug, but his mind isn't on the drink. It's on the way Davis looked at him tonight, and the knowledge that the officer is already thinking about his next move. The old flip phone on the counter buzzes. No caller ID, just an unfamiliar number. Elijah considers letting it go to voicemail, but instinct, or maybe habit, makes him pick it up. Hello? There's a pause, then a voice he doesn't recognize. Male, calm but clipped. Mr. Turner? Who's asking? Elijah's tone sharpens. You don't know me, but you should know that Officer Davis isn't happy about tonight. He's talking to people. The kind of people you don't want hearing your name. Elijah's chest tightens. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't owe him anything, the voice says, and because I've seen this before. You think you're just dealing with one man, but he's got friends who like doing favors. Favors like what? Elijah presses. The line goes quiet for a few seconds, then, favors that put you in the wrong place at the wrong time, with the wrong things in your pocket, or your home. Elijah's grip on the phone tightens. Are you saying he's planning to plant something on me? I'm saying, the caller replies, be careful where you are and who's around you, that's all. The line clicks dead before Elijah can respond. He sets the phone down slowly, the weight of the warning settling over him like a cold blanket. His mind flashes to his apartment, his few possessions, the simplicity of his life. It wouldn't take much to stage something, drugs in a drawer, stolen property in a closet, and suddenly the headlines aren't about a gifted janitor playing the piano, but about a criminal caught in the act. A knock at the door makes him jump. He crosses the room quickly, peering through the peephole. Marlene stands there again, a wool coat wrapped tight around her. He opens the door. You've got company, she says without preamble. Out on the corner. I saw him when I came back from the store. Same guy from before the concert, Davis, just standing there like he owns the sidewalk. Elijah exhales slowly. He's not even trying to hide it anymore. Marlene shakes her head. He wants you to see him. He's playing with you. But listen, if he's going to pull something, it'll be when you're alone. You should stay somewhere else tonight. I'm not running, Elijah says, but the words feel heavier than they should. Marlene studies him, then leans in slightly. Staying alive isn't running. Think about it. She leaves without waiting for an answer, her footsteps fading down the hall. Elijah closes the door, locking it and sliding the chain in place. He moves through the apartment, checking the windows, making sure the back fire escape is clear. His eyes keep flicking to the flyer on the table. Tonight was supposed to be a turning point, a moment where he reclaimed something from his past. But now it feels like a spark that could set off something far bigger and more dangerous than he ever intended. At 9:20, his phone rings again. This time it's Carlisle. You home? Yeah, Elijah says. Why? Because I just drove past your block and I saw him, Carlisle says. Davis, he's parked down the street. Not in his cruiser, but I know his face anywhere. I know, Elijah says quietly. Marlene saw him too. Carlisle's voice drops. Elijah, I think you should pack a bag and stay with me tonight. He's not out there for nothing. Elijah looks around his apartment. The small bookshelf, the single chair by the window, the piano in the corner. If I leave, he'll think I'm scared. Carlisle doesn't hesitate. Good, let him think that. Better scared than set up. The call ends with no decision made. Elijah sits back down at the table, staring at the flyer. His mind is a knot of questions. If he leaves, does he give Davis the opening to come in here? If he stays, does he end up walking into whatever trap Davis is building? Out on the corner, under the dim glow of a streetlight, Davis shifts his stance. He's been standing there long enough for the cold to start biting through his jacket, but he doesn't care. From here, he can see the faint shadow of movement in Elijah's window. He knows the man is inside, weighing his options. Good, that's exactly where he wants him. Off balance, second-guessing every choice. At 9:40, Elijah finally stands. He moves to the piano, lifting the cover from the keys. His fingers rest there for a moment before he begins to play. Not for an audience, not for applause, but to drown out the silence and the waiting. The music fills the apartment warm and defiant, a reminder that even with Davis out there, this space is still his. But halfway through the piece, something shifts outside. A car door shuts softly. Tires roll over pavement. Elijah stops playing, listening. The street outside grows quieter. He moves to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see. The corner is empty. Davis is gone. The relief is brief, because if Davis isn't outside watching, then he's somewhere else, doing something Elijah can't see. And that, Elijah realizes, is worse. The street outside Elijah's window is quiet again, too quiet. The usual hum of traffic is gone, replaced by an almost oppressive stillness. He stands by the window a few seconds longer, scanning the corners and parked cars. Davis's cruiser is nowhere in sight. Neither is the unmarked sedan he sometimes uses. He lets the curtain fall back into place and tells himself maybe the officer finally decided to call it a night. But deep down, Elijah knows better. Davis isn't the kind of man who just walks away. If he's not outside, he's moving somewhere else, and that means trouble is already on its way. Elijah returns to the piano, playing quietly, the melody soft and unhurried. Music has always been his shield, the one thing that could keep his mind from spiraling. Tonight, though, even the notes can't completely drown out the feeling that something's closing in. A faint metallic rattle interrupts the song. It's coming from the kitchen. Elijah freezes, his hands hovering above the keys. He listens, holding his breath now. Another sound follows, the slow, deliberate slide of a window lock being tampered with. He moves silently toward the kitchen, his bare feet making no sound on the worn hardwood floor. The small window above the sink is trembling slightly, as if pushed from the outside. Elijah's pulse spikes. His building's fire escape runs right past that window. It wouldn't take much for someone to climb up from the alley. Another push. The frame creaks softly. Elijah's eyes dart to the corner where an old broom leans against the wall. He grabs it, positioning himself just out of direct sight from the window. The latch gives with a dull snap. The window slides upward an inch. A gloved hand slips inside, fingers curling over the sill. Elijah doesn't think. He swings the broom hard, striking the hand and forcing it back. A muffled curse follows, deep and angry, but the hand doesn't retreat far. Instead, there's the sound of a shoe scraping against the metal fire escape. Whoever's out there is regrouping. He backs into the hallway, pulling his phone from his pocket. He dials 911, pressing the phone to his ear while keeping his eyes on the kitchen. 911, what's your emergency? This is Elijah Turner, apartment 3B, Westfield Avenue. Someone's trying to break into my apartment through the fire escape. The operator's voice sharpens. Stay on the line. Units are on the way. Do not engage the suspect. Another shove rattles the window, this time harder. Elijah grips the broom tighter. I'm not planning on it, he mutters into the phone. The hand appears again, but this time it's holding something. A small black object that catches the light. Elijah can't tell if it's a tool or a weapon, and he doesn't wait to find out. He slams the broom handle against the frame, knocking the object loose. It clatters onto the kitchen floor inside. The sound of hurried footsteps on the fire escape follows. Then silence. The intruder is gone. Elijah stays in place until he hears the faint wail of sirens approaching. 2 minutes later, red and blue lights wash across his living room walls. He opens the front door to find 2 uniformed officers in the hallway. Mr. Turner? One asks. Yeah, they went down the fire escape in the alley. I don't know if they're still around. The officers sweep through the apartment quickly, checking each room before heading to the alley. Elijah follows them to the kitchen, where one of the officers picks up the object that fell inside. It's a small flashlight, the kind that clips to a belt. The officer turns it over in his hand. Not much to go on. Could belong to anyone. Elijah shakes his head. No, that wasn't random. Someone knew exactly where to go. The officers exchange a glance. We'll file a report. In the meantime, keep your windows locked and maybe stay somewhere else tonight. After they leave, the apartment feels colder, emptier. Elijah locks the window and pulls the curtains tight. He picks up the flashlight from the counter, turning it over in his own hands now. It's scuffed, well used, and on the side, faintly etched into the metal, are the initials M.D. Mark Davis. Elijah sets it down slowly, his stomach sinking. The break-in isn't just a threat anymore, it's proof. Proof that Davis has crossed the line from intimidation to outright criminal acts. He paces the living room, the urge to call Carlisle or Marlene Strong. But another thought stops him. If Davis is willing to break in, he's willing to plant something. What if the next time he leaves something behind that the police find? Elijah moves to the closet and pulls out a small duffel bag. He tosses in a change of clothes, his sheet music, and the old photograph of him and his father. The piano, sadly, will have to stay. Before midnight, he's out the door, locking it behind him. He doesn't know exactly where he's going yet. Carlisle's place, maybe. But he knows one thing for certain. If Davis is escalating this fast, tomorrow could be the day everything comes to a head. And Elijah plans to be ready. The morning light is cold and flat as Elijah steps out of Carlisle's spare bedroom. He didn't sleep much. Every creak of the old house kept him on edge. Every shadow under the door felt like it could stretch into something dangerous. Carlisle is already in the kitchen, standing over a pan of scrambled eggs, his tie half knotted and his coat draped over the back of a chair. "You eat something," Carlisle says without looking up. "You're going to need your head clear today." Elijah pours himself a cup of coffee instead, the bitter scent cutting through the heaviness in his chest. "I'm not sure food's going to help." Carlisle finally turns, setting down the spatula. "You told me last night you're sure Davis was behind the break-in. You're also sure he left that flashlight behind. That's more than we had before. You can go to the mayor with that. Hell, you can go to internal affairs." Elijah shakes his head. "And then what? They investigate him for a month while he keeps breathing down my neck? If he's already willing to break in, what do you think he'll do when he finds out I went to IA?" Carlisle leans on the counter, studying him. "Then what's your plan? Just wait until he comes back?" The question hangs between them. Elijah doesn't have an answer, not one he likes anyway. "The only thing I know for sure is that I'm not going back to my apartment until this is over." Carlisle nods slowly, then reaches for his briefcase. "Fine, but you need to start controlling the story. Right now, the city knows you as the janitor who made the mayor cry with a piano. That's good. But if Davis spins it, if he plants something or twists your image, you'll lose that before you even realize it's gone." Elijah sips his coffee, staring at the steam rising from the cup. Carlisle is right. If Davis is going to move fast, Elijah has to move faster. By 8:15, Carlisle drops Elijah off at a small cafe on the east side of town, far from the routes Davis usually patrols. Jenna Miller is waiting at a corner table, her laptop open, a steaming mug beside it. She looks up as Elijah approaches, and the guarded curiosity in her eyes softens into concern. "You're safe?" she asks immediately. "For now," Elijah says, sliding into the seat opposite her. "But something happened last night. Someone tried to get into my place through the fire escape." Jenna's brows knit. "And you think it was him?" "I know it was him," Elijah says, his voice low. "He left something behind, a flashlight with his initials on it." Her fingers pause over the keyboard. "That's huge. If you let me run this—" "No," Elijah cuts in. "Not yet. If it goes public now, he'll know exactly where I am, and he'll push back harder." Jenna studies him for a moment, then nods reluctantly. "Then tell me what you want from me." "I need you to keep the camera on me," Elijah says. "Not just for the music, for everything. If he tries something, I want eyes on it." Jenna leans back, considering. "You're talking about making yourself bait." "I'm talking about making sure he can't touch me without everyone seeing it," Elijah replies. "If I'm in the open with you filming, he has to be careful." By 9 a.m., they have a loose plan. Jenna will shadow Elijah throughout the day, under the guise of working on a feature piece about his music. They'll spend the morning at the community center, where the staff have agreed to let Elijah rehearse, and the afternoon visiting a few public spaces where he might perform in the future. The visibility is the point. Make it impossible for Davis to move without witnesses. But Davis is already in motion. Across town, in the back office of a small pawn shop that serves as his unofficial meeting spot, he sits with the same two men from the parking lot. On the desk in front of him is a small plastic bag, the kind used for evidence. Inside is a handful of prescription pills, unmarked but potent enough to raise questions in the right hands. "You sure about this?" the shorter man asks. Davis doesn't look up from the bag. "He wants to be seen? Fine. We'll give him an audience. All it takes is the right timing. A routine stop, a crowd watching. And then—" He tosses the bag onto the desk. Suddenly our piano man isn't so clean. Back at the community center, Elijah sits at the piano, letting his fingers wander over the keys. The room is mostly empty except for Jenna, who films from different angles, occasionally asking him about his playing, about the meaning behind certain pieces. Around 10:30, Carlisle arrives, holding a folder. He sets it on the piano. "This is every performance I could find of you from when you were a kid. Recitals, competitions, newspaper clippings. You need people to see you for who you really are, not whatever Davis decides to make up." Elijah flips through the folder slowly. There he is at 13, beaming beside a trophy. At 16, sitting at a grand piano in a tuxedo that was slightly too big. His father in the background of some shots, always smiling. It's a reminder of something Davis can't touch, at least not directly. But it's also a reminder of what's at stake. By late morning, Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle move to the small plaza downtown, where a street piano sits under a canopy. Elijah plays a few songs while Jenna records. the crowd of passers-by growing. Some recognize him from the City Hall video, stopping to listen, snapping pictures. In the distance, parked just beyond the edge of the plaza, a familiar cruiser idles. Davis sits inside, sunglasses on, watching. He doesn't move closer, not yet, but Elijah feels the weight of his gaze, steady and unyielding, and knows the lines have been drawn. This isn't just about music anymore. This is about who gets to control the story, and how far each of them is willing to go to win. The late morning sun glints off the polished brass of the street piano, warming the keys under Elijah's fingers. Around him, the small plaza hums with the easy rhythm of city life. Shoes tapping on stone, snippets of conversation, the hiss of the espresso machine from the cafe across the street. Jenna's camera follows his hands, occasionally panning to capture the faces in the crowd. Carlisle stands a few feet away, arms crossed, scanning the perimeter like a man guarding a treasure. Elijah shifts into a brighter piece, something quick and playful, and the crowd responds with smiles, nodding to the rhythm. For a moment, it feels almost normal, like the past 2 days of tension and threats don't exist. But then he sees it. Across the street, partially shielded by a delivery truck, Davis is out of his cruiser. He's leaning casually against the hood, sunglasses hiding his eyes, but not the unmistakable way his attention is fixed on the performance. Next to him stands one of the men from the parking lot 2 nights ago, the taller one with the leather jacket. In the man's hand is a small paper coffee cup, but his other hand keeps dipping into the pocket of his jacket, fiddling with something. Elijah doesn't let the melody falter, but his senses sharpen. The foot traffic around the plaza has picked up. People are moving in and out of the crowd. Any of them could be carrying whatever Davis is planning to find on him. Jenna steps closer between takes. "He's here," she murmurs, tilting her chin toward the street. "I see him," Elijah says, keeping his eyes on the keys. "Don't stop filming." At 11:50, a man in a dark hoodie drifts toward the edge of the piano, pretending to check his phone. He's close enough to brush against the small backpack Elijah keeps by the bench. Carlisle notices and steps forward, planting himself between the man and the bag. The man mutters something under his breath and moves away, disappearing into the crowd. Davis watches the exchange without moving, but his posture stiffens. He murmurs something to the man in the leather jacket, who starts to cross the street. Elijah finishes the piece with a flourish and a polite nod to the applause. As he adjusts the bench, he leans toward Carlisle. "They're going to try something now." Carlisle glances toward the approaching man. "Then we make sure they can't." Jenna positions herself so her camera is pointed directly at the piano and Elijah's bag. The leather jacket man slows his approach, clearly clocking her lens. For a few seconds, it's a standoff. Him calculating whether the move is worth the risk, her holding the camera steady. Then, just as quickly as he started, the man veers away, heading toward a food cart instead. Davis pushes off the hood of his car, visibly irritated, and gets back into the cruiser. But Elijah knows this isn't a retreat, it's an adjustment. At noon, Carlisle suggests they pack up and move. The longer we stay in one spot, the more chances he has to figure out a new angle. They head toward a small park 2 blocks away, Jenna still filming. The park is quieter, the crowd thinner, but there are enough benches and walkers to keep them from feeling isolated. Elijah sets up at another public piano under a gazebo, the wood weathered but the keys still responsive. As he plays, he catches sight of a city maintenance worker rolling a trash bin toward the gazebo. The worker pauses near the bench where Elijah's bag now sits, then moves on. Elijah watches him go, every nerve on edge. Was that nothing, or another probe? At 12:15, his phone vibrates in his pocket. It's an unknown number. He answers cautiously. "Elijah Turner?" The voice is low, urgent. "You don't know me, but you need to clear out, right now." "Who is this?" Elijah asks, scanning the park. "Doesn't matter, he's trying to plant something in your stuff. Not him personally, he's got other people doing it. You're being watched." The line goes dead before Elijah can respond. He meets Carlisle's gaze across the gazebo. The old man nods toward the bag. "We keep it in sight, always." By 12:30, they decide to relocate again, this time to the steps of the art museum where foot traffic is heavy and security cameras cover the entrances. The change of scenery feels safer, but Elijah can't shake the feeling that Davis is simply waiting for the perfect moment rather than forcing it. Sure enough, parked 2 blocks down, the cruiser sits in the shade of a tree, engine idling. Davis is in the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel, watching. The message is clear. He doesn't have to rush. He's got all day. Elijah finishes another piece to polite applause, but his mind is elsewhere. Every person who comes near feels like a potential threat. Every bag, every pocket, every lingering glance. Jenna keeps the camera rolling, her battery pack clipped to her belt, determined not to miss a thing. By 12:45, Carlisle leans in close. "We can't keep this up forever. We need a real plan to turn this on him." Elijah's fingers hover over the keys. "We will," he says quietly. "But first, we make sure he knows I'm not going anywhere." And with that, he launches into a bold, thunderous piece that draws eyes from across the museum steps, the kind of performance that demands attention. Somewhere down the street, in the shade of that tree, Davis keeps watching, waiting for the moment he thinks he's found the opening. Elijah is counting on it. The last deep chord from Elijah's bold performance fades into the open air of the museum steps, swallowed by the hum of the city. Applause rises from the scattered crowd, tourists pausing with cameras, locals on their lunch break. Jenna keeps the camera steady on him, capturing every moment, while Carlisle stands guard at the edge of the steps, scanning faces. Elijah nods politely to the clapping strangers, but his mind is elsewhere. He's aware of the street 2 blocks down, the cruiser in the shade, and the man behind the wheel who hasn't moved in over an hour. Davis isn't here for the music, he's here for an opening. Carlisle approaches quietly. He's getting restless, you can feel it. If you want to end this, now's the time to force his hand. Elijah glances toward Jenna. She's still filming, but listening. "You mean set him up?" "I mean give him what he thinks is a chance," Carlisle says. "But you keep control of it." Elijah leans back slightly on the piano bench, considering. It's risky. Letting Davis think he's found a way in could backfire fast, but it's also the only way to get something undeniable on him. At 1:45, they put the rough plan in motion. Elijah pretends to take a break, standing and stretching as if his set is over. He leaves his small backpack, always guarded until now, resting on the bench beside the piano. Inside, hidden in the lining, is a tiny GPS tracker Carlisle picked up that morning from a friend in private security. The zipper is half open, just enough to suggest carelessness. Jenna positions herself across the plaza, camera trained on the bag. Carlisle lingers nearby, pretending to scroll through his phone, but keeping his eyes locked on the street. Minutes pass. The crowd thins as lunchtime ends. The air grows warmer, the smell of hot asphalt mixing with the faint aroma from the food trucks parked along the curb. Then Carlisle spots movement. "Leather jacket, your friend from before." The tall man from the parking lot strolls up the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, head turning just enough to scan the area. He's alone, at least visibly, but his line of sight keeps flicking toward the bag. Elijah stands a few steps away, sipping from a paper cup, acting distracted. Inside, his pulse is steady, every muscle ready. The man hesitates at the edge of the plaza, then drifts closer, blending with a group of tourists. When they stop to take photos, he veers toward the piano. Jenna adjusts her camera angle. She's got a clear line now. Him, the bag, and the empty bench. Carlisle shifts slightly to block the man's view of Elijah. The man crouches briefly, pretending to examine something on the ground. His hand slips toward the bag. He's quick, practiced. In one motion, he drops something inside and straightens up, walking away without a glance back. Carlisle moves in instantly, zipping the bag and slinging it over his shoulder. "Got it," he mutters, heading straight toward Elijah. Jenna lowers her camera only to check the footage. "Clear as day," she says. Him putting it in, the whole thing. They move fast, cutting across the plaza toward a quiet side street. Once out of direct sight from the main road, Carlisle opens the bag. Inside, wedged between the folded sheet music, is a small plastic bag filled with white pills. Elijah stares at it for a beat, the weight of the setup settling in. He was really going to do it. "He just did," Carlisle corrects. "And now we've got proof." Jenna is already on her phone. "I can send this to my editor right now. Video, still shots, timestamps." "Not yet," Elijah interrupts. "If we go public too soon, Davis will just say it's staged. We need him tied to it directly." Carlisle nods, which means the next step is catching the hand that feeds the snake. They decide to move the meeting point. Carlisle calls a trusted contact in the mayor's office, someone who's already aware of the tension between Elijah and Davis. Within 10 minutes, they've arranged to bring the evidence to a secure location, an office with cameras, witnesses, and enough political weight to make the accusations stick. But getting there without tipping off Davis is the hard part. The cruiser is still down the street, engine idling. He hasn't seen the exchange yet, which means he's expecting his man to return with a story about how clean the drop went. At 2:15, Elijah, Carlisle, and Jenna walk casually toward the back of the museum, exiting through a side gate. They blend into a small group of visitors heading toward the train station. Carlisle keeps the bag slung over his shoulder, Jenna's camera tucked into her tote now, lens covered. 2 blocks from the museum, Elijah spots the leather jacket man again. He's on his phone, his eyes scanning the street. He hasn't seen them yet, but it's only a matter of time. They duck into a narrow alley that leads toward a municipal building. Carlisle's contact is waiting in a nondescript sedan at the curb. The 3 pile in, and within minutes they're heading across town. From the rear window, Elijah catches a glimpse of the leather jacket man stepping into the street, looking both ways, then pulling his phone to his ear. He can guess who's on the other end of that call. As the car merges into traffic, Carlisle glances at Elijah. This is it. Once we hand this over, it's out of our hands. Elijah looks at the bag on the seat between them, then at Jenna, who meets his gaze with a small nod. Good, he says finally, because I'm done letting him decide how this ends. The sedan carrying Elijah, Carlisle, and Jenna weaves through midday traffic, its path set for the municipal building on the west side of town. Inside, the air is tense. The plastic bag of pills sits on the seat between Carlisle and Elijah, a silent reminder of just how far Davis is willing to go. Carlisle's contact, a man named Whitaker, is driving. He's in his late 50s, sharp suit, the kind of man who knows exactly which doors to open and which to keep locked. We'll head straight into the mayor's private conference room, he says without looking back. Once the video and physical evidence are logged, it's out of Davis's control. Elijah nods, but his eyes are on the side mirror. We've got company. Jenna twists in her seat. A black sedan has been tailing them since they left the alley. The glare on the windshield makes it impossible to see the driver, but the profile is familiar enough. It's him, Jenna says quietly. Whitaker glances at the mirror. We're not losing him in this traffic. Stay calm. By the time they pull into the underground parking garage of the municipal building, the black sedan is still a few car lengths behind. Whitaker swipes a card at the security gate and the barrier lifts slowly. They glide inside, tires echoing against the concrete walls. The gate clanks shut behind them, but there's no sign of the black sedan entering. They climb out quickly, Carlisle taking the bag, Jenna holding her camera tight to her chest. They head toward the elevator at the far end of the garage. That's when the footsteps echo. Going somewhere, Turner? The voice bounces off the walls, low and cutting. Davis emerges from behind a concrete pillar, hands in his jacket pockets, his posture loose, but his eyes locked on Elijah. Carlisle steps forward instinctively, placing himself between them. We're done here, Davis. Go home. Davis's gaze slides to the bag in Carlisle's hand. What's in the bag, old man? Something you want to show the class? You know damn well what's in it, Elijah says, his voice steady. A smirk tugs at the corner of Davis's mouth. Careful, that sounds like an accusation. You got proof of something, you take it to the right people. Otherwise, it's just a story from a janitor looking for his 15 minutes. Jenna lifts her camera slightly, lens pointed at Davis now. I think we have more than a story. For the first time, Davis's expression hardens. Turn that off. Not a chance, Jenna replies. The air in the garage thickens. Davis takes a step closer, his eyes never leaving Elijah's. You really think you can walk into that building and ruin me? You think they'll take your word over mine? You have no idea how many people owe me favors. Elijah doesn't flinch. I don't need them to take my word. I have your man on camera planting those pills. And if you want to talk about favors, we can talk about the flashlight you left in my apartment last night. That makes Davis pause, just a fraction of a second, but enough for everyone to see. His jaw tightens, the smirk gone completely now. You're making a mistake. No, Elijah says, stepping forward until they're only a foot apart. The mistake was thinking I'd stay quiet. Whitaker presses the elevator button. Enough. We're going upstairs. Davis doesn't move aside. For a moment, it feels like he might try something right here in the garage. His hands shift inside his pockets, shoulders squaring, but then he takes a slow step back, eyes still locked on Elijah. This isn't over, he says, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Not by a long shot. Elijah meets his stare without blinking. You're right. The next part is upstairs, in front of people who can end this for good. The elevator doors slide open. Carlisle, Elijah, Jenna, and Whitaker step inside. Davis stays behind, standing perfectly still as the doors close. Inside the elevator, no one speaks for the first few seconds. The only sound is the hum of the motor and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Carlisle exhales slowly. That's the first time I've seen him blink. Whitaker nods. He knows he's cornered. That's why he's dangerous right now. They step out into the mayor's private floor, greeted by a pair of security officers. Whitaker hands over the bag and Jenna's camera, explaining the situation in clipped, precise sentences. Within minutes, the evidence is locked away, and a meeting is set for later that afternoon. Elijah sits in one of the leather chairs in the waiting area, the adrenaline slowly giving way to a deeper fatigue. It's not over. Davis is still out there, but for the first time in days, he feels like the ground under his feet isn't shifting quite as much. Down in the garage, Davis walks toward his cruiser at an unhurried pace. The echo of his footsteps fills the empty space. He slides into the driver's seat, starts the engine, and stares at the closed security gate. His reflection in the windshield is sharp, cold. He's not finished. Not until Elijah Turner is exactly where he wants him. Off that stage, out of the spotlight, and buried under a story no one will question. The mayor's private conference room is warmer than Elijah expected, lit by soft amber lamps instead of the harsh fluorescence that fill the rest of City Hall. Heavy curtains block the view of the street, and the thick carpet muffles every footstep. A long mahogany table dominates the room, polished to a mirror shine. Mayor Robert Lang sits at the head of the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His face carries the calm, deliberate expression of someone used to weighing decisions that affect thousands. Beside him sits Whitaker, a stack of folders at his elbow. Carlisle, Jenna, and Elijah take the seats opposite, the evidence bag and camera resting in plain view between them. Two security officers stand near the door, silent but alert. Lang gestures toward the bag first. I've been briefed. Pills, correct? Yes, Kate, Whitaker says. Recovered less than 2 hours ago, immediately following a suspected attempt by one of Officer Mark Davis's known associates to plant them in Mr. Turner's bag. We have clear video footage of the act, taken by Ms. Miller. Jenna sets her camera on the table, the lens cap off. It's all here, full shot of the suspect, the drop, and him walking away. No edits, no gaps. Lang leans forward slightly. And you're certain this connects back to Davis? Carlisle answers before Elijah can. The man who made the drop was seen with Davis multiple times in the last 48 hours, including last night in the community center parking lot. The pattern is obvious, and so is the motive. Davis has been escalating harassment against Elijah since the City Hall performance. Lang's eyes shift to Elijah. Why? Elijah meets his gaze steadily. Because he wanted to humiliate me. I didn't play along, and when people responded to the music, he lost control of the room. Men like him don't let that go. He's been following me, watching my apartment, sending people after me. Last night he tried to break in. Whitaker adds quietly, he left behind a flashlight with his initials engraved on it. Lang sits back, hands clasped loosely on the table. You understand what you're asking me to do here. Opening an official inquiry into a police officer, especially one with as many years in the department as Davis, will trigger a political firestorm. He has allies, some of them in this building. I understand, Elijah says. But if you don't act, he'll get bolder, and the next person he decides to destroy might not be in a position to fight back. For a moment, the room is silent except for the faint ticking of a clock on the far wall. Lang studies Elijah, then turns to Jenna. You'll turn over the footage? Yes, she says without hesitation. But I also plan to publish it. The public has a right to see what's happening. Lang's brows lift slightly, but he doesn't object. And you're prepared for the blowback? I've been a reporter for 10 years, Jenna replies. I've seen blowback before, but this is different. This is someone abusing a badge to settle a personal grudge. Lang exhales slowly, then reaches for the phone at his side. All right, we'll open an internal investigation immediately. Officer Davis will be placed on temporary leave pending the outcome. Whitaker, make sure this evidence is logged and secured. I want copies to Internal Affairs and the DA's office before the end of the day. Carlisle nods, relief flickering across his face. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lang's gaze returns to Elijah. Don't thank me yet. He's not going to take this quietly. If he's already crossed the line into criminal behavior, suspension won't stop him. It might even push him further. I know, Elijah says quietly, but at least now it won't be in the shadows. Whitaker gathers the folders and the evidence bag, handing them to one of the security officers. Jenna powers down her camera, sliding it back into her bag. Carlisle leans over to Elijah. This is a win, but it's not the endgame. We still have to get through the next few days. Lang rises from his seat, signaling the meeting is over. Mr. Turner, my office will assign you a temporary security detail. Use them. Don't go anywhere alone. Elijah nods, standing. Understood. As they file out into the hallway, the noise of the building returns. Phones ringing, aides rushing past with clipboards, the murmur of conversations. But beneath it all, Elijah senses a shift. The balance has changed. Davis isn't untouchable anymore, and that's a dangerous thing. For both of them. Down in the garage, Davis sits in his cruiser, engine idling. He's been parked there for over an hour, waiting. When he finally sees Elijah, Carlisle, and Jenna emerge with security escorts, his jaw tightens. He knows exactly what's happening upstairs, and he doesn't need to hear it to understand. The walls are closing in. He pulls out of the garage slowly, blending into the afternoon traffic. But as he drives, his mind is already turning over the next move. Suspension or not, there are ways to win a fight. And if Elijah thinks the mayor's decision means he's safe, he's about to learn how wrong he is. The late afternoon sun filters through the blinds of Elijah's small apartment, casting long stripes of gold across the worn carpet. He sits on the edge of his couch, shoulders still tense from the meeting with the mayor. Outside, the muted hum of traffic drifts up from the street below. Carlisle stands near the window, scanning the block with the eyes of a man who spent his life reading danger in the smallest movements. The temporary security detail, a pair of plainclothes officers, waits in an unmarked SUV across the street. Jenna is at the kitchen counter, typing furiously on her laptop. The footage from the parking garage and the planted pills is uploading to her news outlet's secure server. Another 20 minutes, she says without looking up. Once it's live, people are going to see the truth. No more whispers, no more backroom rumors, this will be public. Elijah nods, but his stomach is tight. Public is good, but it also means Davis will know exactly how much we have on him. He already knows, Carlisle says flatly, drawing the curtain closed. The question is, what he's willing to do about it now that he's cornered. They don't have to wait long for the answer. The first sign is the text message on Elijah's phone, a number he doesn't recognize. The words are short, the tone cold. You think you're safe because the mayor gave you babysitters? Think again. Elijah shows it to Carlisle, who takes one look and reaches for his own phone. We're forwarding this to the security detail. They'll trace it, see if they can get a location. Before he can hit send, the building's fire alarm blares. The piercing wail fills the apartment, followed by the automated voice telling residents to evacuate. Jenna grabs her bag. You think this is real? Carlisle is already moving to the door. I think it's a diversion. They hurry down the stairwell, the air thick with the smell of something burning. On the third-floor landing, they pass a neighbor clutching a crying toddler, her eyes wide with panic. Smoke in the laundry room, she says breathlessly. By the time they reach the street, the unmarked SUV is parked right at the curb, both security officers out and scanning the crowd. One of them, a tall man with a crew cut, waves them over. We've got you, let's move. They pile into the back seat and the SUV pulls away from the curb, sirens wailing somewhere behind them as a fire truck barrels toward the building. Elijah glances out the rear window and his stomach drops. A black sedan sits 2 cars back in the traffic, matching their lane changes perfectly. It's him, Elijah says. The driver doesn't waste time. Hold on. He takes a hard right down an alley, tires skidding on loose gravel. The sedan follows, closing the gap. Jenna clutches the seat in front of her. What's the plan here? Get you somewhere safe, the driver says, voice clipped. The alley opens onto a back street, but the sedan is still there. It makes no move to pass, no attempt to force them off the road. It just follows, steady, deliberate. Carlisle leans forward. He's not trying to stop us. He's letting us know he can. After a tense 5 minutes, the SUV pulls into the underground garage of a secure municipal annex. The gate shuts behind them, cutting off the view of the street. Only then does everyone exhale. Inside, the building feels like a bunker. Reinforced doors, security cameras at every corner, and a small office where they're told they can wait until the fire department clears Elijah's building. Jenna opens her laptop again. The video's live, she says, her voice trembling slightly. It's already getting shares. Comments are flooding in. Carlisle moves to a monitor showing the building's security feeds. Good. Let the city see him for what he is. But don't think for a second that humiliating him in public is going to end this. Elijah leans back in his chair, the weight of the day settling in. I know, this isn't about ending it tonight. It's about surviving long enough to see the end. Somewhere across town, Davis sits in a dimly lit bar, a half-empty glass in front of him. His phone vibrates with notifications, texts from friends, calls from reporters, messages from within the department. The video is everywhere now, and his name is in every headline. He doesn't rage, not yet. Instead, he watches the screen of his phone, reading each comment, each insult, each demand for his resignation. Then he smiles faintly and dials a number from memory. When the voice on the other end answers, he says only one sentence. It's time to make this personal. The secure municipal annex feels almost too quiet. Thick concrete walls muffle the sounds of the city, leaving only the low hum of the ventilation system and the occasional shuffle of security staff passing by the office door. Elijah sits at the small table, elbows resting on the surface, hands clasped tightly together. He hasn't checked his phone in over an hour, partly because Jenna warned him the comments would be brutal, and partly because he doesn't want Davis's threats living rent-free in his head. Carlisle, on the other hand, hasn't stopped moving. He paces the narrow strip between the table and the door, occasionally stopping to glance at the security feed on the wall-mounted monitor. The fire department cleared your building, he says finally, but I still don't like the idea of you going back tonight. The security detail's driver, Officer Hayes, steps into the doorway. We can keep you here overnight if necessary, but it's not exactly a comfortable setup. I've slept on worse, Elijah mutters. Before anyone can respond, Jenna's phone buzzes on the table. She picks it up, expecting more notifications about the video, but her face changes instantly, her eyes narrowing, her grip tightening around the device. This isn't from my newsroom. Carlisle leans over. What is it? She turns the screen toward him. It's a photo, grainy but unmistakable, the front porch of her parents' house. The timestamp in the corner reads 8:17 p.m. Below the image is a single line of text. Your turn, reporter. Jenna's voice is steady, but her knuckles are white. They live in Westwood. That's 40 minutes from here. Whoever took this is moving fast. Carlisle doesn't hesitate. Hayes, get a unit to that address now. Tell them to keep the lights off when they approach. Hayes disappears into the hallway, already barking into his radio. Elijah feels a sick twist in his gut. He's expanding the target list. Carlisle nods grimly. He wants to rattle us, make us think nowhere is safe. The moment we start reacting emotionally, he gets the upper hand. Jenna closes her laptop, tucking it into her bag. Too late for that. If he's been anywhere near my parents, he's already crossed a line I can't ignore. 10 minutes later, Hayes returns, his expression tight. Unit reports no one on the property now, but they found fresh tire tracks in the driveway and the neighbors saw a black sedan about 20 minutes ago. That's him, Carlisle says. He's taunting us. Jenna exhales sharply, the tension in her shoulders visible. Then we need to turn this around. We need to make him the one reacting. Elijah looks between them. How? Carlisle's eyes narrow. By making him think the walls are closing in faster than they are. We leak that the DA is preparing charges. Make it sound like it's already in motion. Men like Davis, control freaks, they make mistakes when they feel cornered. Jenna's already typing on her phone. I can have that rumor circulating in under an hour. Social media will eat it up, and it'll spread faster than we can track. While she works, Elijah steps into the hallway to clear his head. The air smells faintly of coffee and industrial cleaner, a strange comfort after the chaos of the last few hours. But as he passes the reception desk, one of the on-duty officers glances up and frowns. Thought you should know, the officer says quietly. We just got word. Someone broke into the garage at your building again. This time they cut the wires on your car's brakes. Elijah freezes. They're trying to make sure I don't walk away next time. Or drive away, the officer replies grimly. Carlisle appears in the doorway behind him, having overheard. We're done playing defense. This ends soon. Back in the office, Jenna looks up from her phone. It's out there. As far as the internet is concerned, Davis is about to be indicted. It's trending in 3 local hashtags already. Carlisle allows himself the faintest smile. Good. Now we watch him sweat. Across the city, Davis sits in his sedan on a dark side street. Engine off. The glow from his phone lights his face as he scrolls through the storm of posts and comments. The rumor about the DA's charges is everywhere. Screenshots, tweets, even a local news alert. For the first time today, There's a crack in his confidence. He makes a call, his voice low and urgent. "We need to accelerate, tonight, before they lock me out completely." The voice on the other end asks something sharp, but Davis cuts it off. "No, I'm not waiting. I want him where I can see him. You know the place." He hangs up, starts the engine, and pulls into the night. The annex feels heavier as the night sets in. The fluorescent lights hum softly, casting a pale glow over the small office where Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle have been holed up. The air is still, almost stagnant, as if the building itself is holding its breath. Elijah paces the length of the room, his mind running through the day's events on a loop. Every time he thinks they might be gaining ground, Davis finds a way to remind them that he's still out there, still one step ahead. Carlisle sits near the security monitor, watching the grainy feed of the street outside. "He's quiet," he mutters. "Too quiet." Jenna, seated at the table with her laptop open, looks up from the screen. Social media is still going wild. The rumor about the DA's charges is everywhere. But she hesitates, frowning at a fresh notification. Someone's trying to spin it. New accounts popping up, claiming it's all fake news, that we fabricated the footage. Carlisle grunts. Classic smear tactic. If he can't erase the truth, he'll drown it in lies. Elijah stops pacing. "So we hit him with more truth before he can get ahead of it. What else do we have?" Jenna scrolls quickly. The garage footage is good, but the audio from the precinct, that conversation where he admits planting evidence, that's gold. We drop that next. Carlisle shakes his head. "Not yet. Timing is everything. If we give him everything now, we've got nothing left to leverage." The debate is cut short by a knock on the door. Officer Hayes steps inside, his expression unreadable. "We just got a call. Said it was for you, Elijah. No caller ID, just a voice telling us to pass along a message. If you want this to end, meet me at the old freight yard in an hour." Jenna stiffens. "That's a setup." Carlisle doesn't answer right away. He just looks at Elijah, reading the younger man's face. He's baiting you, making you think you can talk him down. But there's no talking a man like Davis down. You go there, you go in his world on his terms. Elijah's jaw tightens. "If I don't go, he'll just escalate. Maybe he goes after Jenna's family again, maybe mine, maybe someone else's." Jenna's voice rises. "And if you do go, you might not come back. That's exactly what he wants." Carlisle stands, moving to the window and pulling the curtain back just enough to peek outside. "We can turn this. Make him think he's pulling the strings when in reality, we're setting the stage." Hayes crosses his arms. "We'd have to move fast. The freight yard's a big place, lots of blind spots. If he's planning an ambush, he could have shooters anywhere." Carlisle turns back to Elijah. "If we do this, we do it my way. Full perimeter sweep, backup teams in place, every angle covered. And you wear a vest." Elijah nods slowly. "Your way. But I'm going." By 10:45 p.m., the SUV is rolling through the industrial district, its headlights cutting across the cracked asphalt and rusting chain-link fences. The old freight yard looms ahead, rows of abandoned boxcars and warehouses silhouetted against the night sky. Inside the vehicle, the tension is palpable. Elijah sits between Carlisle and Hayes, his eyes fixed on the dark shapes ahead. Jenna isn't with them. Carlisle insisted she stay behind, both for her safety and to coordinate the live feed they're setting up to record whatever happens. The SUV stops just short of the main gate. Carlisle's voice is low but firm. "We stick to the plan. You walk in, we watch from every angle. If anything goes sideways, we're in before he can blink." Elijah steps out into the cool night air. The place smells of rust and damp wood, the faint scent of oil lingering in the breeze. His footsteps crunch on gravel as he makes his way toward the center of the yard. A single light burns ahead, dangling from a bent pole near an open boxcar. The shadows around it seem deeper, more dangerous. From the darkness, a figure steps forward. Davis. His uniform is gone, replaced by a black jacket and jeans. He carries himself with the same swagger, but there's a sharpness in his eyes, a glint of something colder than before. "Elijah," Davis says, his voice almost casual, "you've caused me a lot of trouble." Elijah keeps his hands visible, his tone steady. "I showed people the truth. You did the rest." Davis smirks. "Truth is whatever people believe, and I'm not done making them believe me." From somewhere off to the side, metal clatters, just a faint sound, but enough to make Elijah's pulse spike. Carlisle's voice crackles softly in his earpiece. Two shooters east and west flank, hold position. Davis takes a step closer. This ends tonight, one way or another. Elijah's heart pounds, but he forces his voice to stay calm. You're right, it does. And in that moment, Carlisle's team moves. Floodlights snap on, blinding in their sudden intensity. Armed officers step out from behind boxcars, weapons raised. Shouts echo across the yard. Davis's smirk falters for the first time, his eyes darting to the lights, then back to Elijah. But instead of surrendering, he bolts toward the shadows. Carlisle's voice is sharp in the comms. He's running. West side. Cut him off. The floodlights cut through the night like blades, slicing away the shadows where Davis had been seconds ago. Gravel scatters under his boots as he darts toward the west side of the freight yard, weaving between rusted boxcars and stacks of splintering pallets. West side! He's headed for the service gate! Carlisle's voice barks over the comms. Officers peel off in that direction, their footsteps pounding against the cracked concrete. Elijah stands frozen for only a heartbeat before instinct takes over. He runs after Davis, Carlisle's earlier warnings echoing in his head. The air is cold enough to sting his lungs, the scent of rust and oil growing stronger with every stride. Somewhere ahead, a chain-link fence rattles as Davis shoves it open and slips through into a narrower section of the yard. The beams from the floodlights can't reach this far. Only slivers of moonlight spill between the skeletal frames of old cranes and freight containers. Careful, Hayes' voice warns in Elijah's earpiece. He knows this place better than we do. He could be trying to funnel you. Elijah slows, scanning the shadows. Every dark corner feels like a threat, every scrap of metal a potential hiding place. A faint scraping sound draws his attention to the left, a shadow moving fast between two stacked containers. He cuts toward it, heart hammering. His boots splash through a shallow puddle, sending ripples across the dark water. Then he spots him. Davis, climbing the side of an old service platform, his movements quick and precise despite the weight of the pistol visible in his right hand. Carlisle, he's going vertical, Elijah whispers into the comm. Copy. Hold your position until we've got eyes on him from above, Carlisle replies. But Davis glances back, catching sight of Elijah, and his smirk returns. You're stubborn, Janitor, he calls down, his voice echoing in the empty yard. Too bad that's going to get you killed. A gunshot cracks through the night, the muzzle flash flaring bright in the darkness. The bullet slams into the metal railing inches from Elijah's head, sending sparks flying. He dives behind a crate, the sharp tang of gunpowder filling his nose. All units, shots fired. He's armed and firing. Carlisle's command comes fast and loud. Do not let him reach the perimeter. From somewhere to the east, another set of floodlights flickers on, pushing the darkness back just enough for Elijah to see Davis sprinting across the elevated platform toward a half-open maintenance door. Elijah doesn't think. He just moves. He scales the crate, grabs the edge of a low ladder, and pulls himself up after him. His palms burn against the cold metal, his breathing heavy but steady. Davis reaches the door and disappears inside. Elijah follows, stepping into a cavernous warehouse that smells of damp wood and old machinery. The sound of dripping water echoes off the high ceilings, each drop punctuating the silence between their movements. A shadow shifts ahead. Davis, weaving between stacks of wooden crates. Elijah keeps his distance, careful not to lose sight of him. Every instinct screams that this is the part where things turn deadly. Then Davis's voice cuts through the gloom. You think taking me down will fix anything? The system you're fighting? He laughs bitterly. It's built to protect me. Elijah's grip tightens on the flashlight he's holding. The difference is, now everyone's watching. And they've seen who you really are. Another shot rings out, splintering the crate beside Elijah's head. He drops low, moving fast toward a side aisle, circling to cut Davis off. Carlisle's voice crackles again. We've got him boxed in. East exit sealed. He's running out of options. Davis hears it too, his pace quickens, his movements sharper. But as he rounds the next corner, two officers step into his path, weapons drawn. Drop it, one shouts. For a moment, Davis freezes. His chest rises and falls rapidly, eyes darting between the officers and the shadowed space behind him where Elijah now stands. Don't do it, Elijah says quietly. You're done. But Davis's expression hardens. In a flash, he spins toward the side, aiming for a narrow gap between a stack of pallets and the wall. It's a desperate move, and it's exactly what Carlisle's team was waiting for. From above, a spotlight beams down through a broken skylight. blinding Davis as more officers rush in from the west. The sound of boots on concrete and the click of safeties being disengaged fills the space. Davis stops, chest heaving, his pistol still in hand. The standoff stretches for what feels like an eternity, until finally, with a slow, almost reluctant motion, he lowers the weapon. The clatter of metal on concrete echoes as it hits the floor. Two officers move in, cuffing him quickly while Carlisle steps forward, eyes locked on the man who's caused 3 days of chaos. "It's over," Carlisle says simply. Davis smirks faintly, even as he's led away. "For now," he mutters. The morning light creeps through the blinds of the small conference room where Elijah and Jenna sit, both still wearing the clothes from the night before. Empty coffee cups and takeout containers litter the table. Neither has slept, their adrenaline only now giving way to exhaustion. Carlisle enters, holding a folded newspaper in one hand and his phone in the other. Without a word, he tosses the paper onto the table. The front page is dominated by a grainy but unmistakable image. Officer Davis, in handcuffs, being led away by two uniformed officers. The headline reads, "Corrupt Cop Arrested After Tense Nighttime Standoff." Jenna leans forward, her eyes scanning the article. "They got the facts right," she says, almost surprised. "No spin, no sugarcoating, just the truth." Carlisle nods, but his expression stays guarded. "That's one outlet. Others will try to twist it. This fight's not over just because he's in a cell." Elijah sits back, rubbing his temples. "Where is he now?" "County holding," Carlisle replies. "No bail hearing yet. The DA's office is reviewing the charges. Everything from evidence tampering to attempted murder. It's a long list." Jenna's phone buzzes. She glances at the screen and her eyes widen. "You need to see this." She turns the phone so Elijah and Carlisle can see a live news broadcast. The anchor is speaking in urgent tones as a video clip plays. A crowd gathering outside City Hall, signs in hand. Some read "Justice for Elijah," others "End police corruption now." "They've been out there since dawn," Jenna says. "Word's spreading fast. People are angry. Really angry." Carlisle leans on the table, his voice low. "That's good. But it's also dangerous. Public anger can turn messy fast. If the wrong people try to hijack this moment..." He lets the thought hang. Elijah looks at the screen, at the strangers chanting his name and demanding justice. They deserve the truth, all of it. By mid-morning, the small conference room has turned into an impromptu war room. A whiteboard is covered in names, dates, and arrows connecting them, an intricate map of Davis's network and the people who protected him. Hayes arrives carrying a stack of printed reports. "We've been digging into his financials. He's been taking payments from 3 separate sources, all tied to private security firms. And get this, 2 of those firms have contracts with the city." Jenna whistles under her breath. That explains how he stayed untouchable for so long. Carlisle's jaw tightens. "It also means we just stepped on a much bigger landmine. These aren't just dirty cops. We're talking about people with political clout, deep pockets, and a lot to lose." Elijah flips through the pages, his mind already moving ahead. "So we don't stop at Davis. We go after every name on that list." Carlisle fixes him with a hard stare. "That's not a small job, and it's not without risk. You've already got a target on your back." Before Elijah can respond, Jenna's laptop pings with an incoming video call. She answers, and the screen fills with the face of Mayor Thompson. His expression is drawn, his voice serious. "I wanted to speak to you directly," the mayor says. "Last night was a turning point. The people are watching and they're expecting real change. But you need to understand. Davis's arrest has rattled some powerful cages. You're not just dealing with one corrupt officer anymore." Elijah leans closer to the screen. "Then we keep pushing. The truth is the truth, no matter how deep it goes." The mayor hesitates. "I admire your resolve, but be careful. Some of these people won't hesitate to protect themselves at any cost. I'll support you publicly, but there are limits to what I can do behind closed doors." Carlisle cuts in. "We've been in this game long enough to know how it works, Mr. Mayor. If we can get the evidence into the right hands, people who can't be bought, then we've got a chance." The mayor nods once, his expression grim. "Then you'd better move fast. The storm's coming." The call ends, leaving the room in a heavy silence. Outside, the city feels different. Reporters swarm the streets near the courthouse, their cameras trained on anyone connected to the case. The crowd at City Hall has grown, their chants echoing down the block. Elijah and Jenna step outside for the first time all day, the cool air hitting them like a wave. Almost instantly, people recognize them. A woman approaches, her voice trembling. "My son! He was arrested last year by Davis. They planted drugs on him. We couldn't fight it. He's still in prison. Thank you for what you've done." Elijah feels the weight of her words settle on his shoulders. This isn't just about him anymore. It never was. Carlisle joins them, scanning the street with a practiced eye. "We've got to get moving. The DA's holding a press conference in an hour. You need to be there." They pile into an unmarked car and head toward the courthouse. The streets are choked with traffic, honking horns mixing with the distant roar of the crowd. When they arrive, the steps of the courthouse are lined with cameras. The DA stands at a podium, flanked by uniformed officers and stacks of sealed evidence boxes. "This case is not closed," the DA says firmly into the microphones. "We are pursuing all leads, and no one, no matter their rank or influence, will be above the law." The crowd erupts in applause. Elijah stands off to the side, watching the faces in the crowd. Some are angry, others hopeful, but all of them are watching closely. Carlisle leans over. "You wanted the truth out there? Well, it's out now. The question is, can you handle what comes next?" Elijah doesn't answer right away. His gaze drifts to the reporters, the flashing cameras, and the people chanting in the distance. Finally, he nods. "Yeah," he says quietly. "I can handle it." The courthouse steps are still buzzing from the DA's announcement when Carlisle ushers Elijah and Jenna into a side entrance to avoid the swarm of reporters. Inside, the air is cooler but charged with tension. Carlisle's phone vibrates nonstop. Calls from contacts, reporters, and allies who suddenly want a piece of the unfolding story. But not all the calls are friendly. "Listen to this," Carlisle says, putting one on speaker. A clipped male voice comes through. "You're making a mistake. Drop this now, or it won't end well for any of you." The line goes dead before anyone can respond. Jenna exhales sharply. "That's the third one today. They're not even trying to hide the threats anymore." Carlisle pockets the phone, his expression grim. "That means we're hitting nerves. But it also means they're starting to panic, and panicked people are dangerous." Elijah sits at a long wooden table in the DA's conference room. His fingers tap against the surface, not from nerves, but from the adrenaline that hasn't worn off since last night. If they think threats are going to scare me off, they don't know me very well. Before Carlisle can respond, the DA herself walks in, a thick folder in her hands. "We have a problem," she says, dropping the file onto the table. "Davis's lawyer just filed a motion to suppress key evidence, claiming it was obtained illegally. If the judge grants it, half our case evaporates." Jenna flips through the pages. "They're going to argue chain of custody issues?" "Worse," the DA replies. "They're claiming some of the evidence was planted by you." She looks directly at Elijah. Elijah freezes. "That's absurd. I didn't—" "I know," the DA cuts him off. "But remember, this isn't just about the truth. This is about what they can make a jury believe. They're trying to put you on trial before Davis even gets there." Carlisle leans back in his chair, his voice edged with frustration. "Classic smear tactic. If they can taint the whistleblower, they poison the whole case." Elijah's jaw tightens. "So what's the move?" "We fight it," the DA says, "but we need more than what we have now. If there's even a hint of doubt about the integrity of our evidence, the judge might fold under pressure from the other side's lawyers." Carlisle turns to Jenna. "That means we go back to the start. Every lead, every witness, every scrap of documentation, we verify it twice. If Davis and his people want to fight, we'll give them one." The next few hours are a blur. Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle move between cramped offices and dimly lit storage rooms, combing through files, recording statements, and tracking down reluctant witnesses. Some doors stay shut, people too scared to get involved. Others open wide. Citizens eager to share their own stories of harassment, false arrests, and intimidation tied to Davis and his allies. By late afternoon, they have enough to strengthen the case, but the clock is ticking. The suppression hearing is scheduled for the following morning. As they prepare to leave the courthouse, a commotion outside catches their attention. Carlisle peeks through the blinds and mutters a curse. Across the street, a group of men in dark suits is handing out flyers to reporters. Even from a distance, Elijah can see his own face printed across the top, under the bold headline, "Liar, Fraud, Criminal." Jenna grabs one of the flyers from a nearby table where a reporter left it behind. The text is a hit piece full of distorted facts, anonymous sources, and outright lies about Elijah's past. It paints him as a disgruntled employee with a vendetta, a man willing to fabricate accusations to settle personal scores. Elijah stares at it for a long moment, his stomach churning. They're trying to make me the villain. Carlisle folds the paper in half. That's exactly what they're doing, and they'll keep doing it until we make it impossible for anyone to believe them. By early evening, the backlash has spread online. Hashtags calling Elijah a liar trend alongside ones demanding justice. The digital war is in full swing, two opposing narratives battling for control of the public's attention. Jenna sits in front of her laptop, working with a small team of volunteers to counter the false stories. They release clips of Elijah's piano performance, eyewitness accounts of Davis's abuses, and official statements from the DA's office. Still, the smear campaign is relentless. Fake accounts flood comment sections with the same talking points. Old photos of Elijah, taken out of context, are circulated to suggest criminal behavior that never happened. It's coordinated, Jenna says, her voice tight with anger. This isn't just Davis's people. This is bigger. Someone with serious resources is backing this. Carlisle nods. We knew this was coming, but if they're burning this much money to discredit you, it means they're scared of what happens if you're believed. Elijah steps away from the screens, pacing the room. I don't care about my name. I care about the truth. If they destroy me in the process, fine, but they don't get to bury the truth with me. That night, they regroup at the safe house. The blinds are drawn tight, the only light coming from the soft glow of laptops and phones. Outside, rain begins to fall, tapping against the windows in a steady rhythm. Carlisle sits at the head of the table, a map of the city spread out before him. They're trying to corner us legally, politically, and in the court of a public opinion. We're not going to win this by playing defense. Jenna looks up from her screen. So we go on the offensive? Exactly, Carlisle says. We leak the next set of documents. Everything we've got on the city contracts, the payments, the cover-ups, not just Davis, everyone connected. Elijah meets his eyes. That could blow this wide open. Carlisle nods slowly. Or it could blow back on us hard. Once this is out, there's no putting it back in the box. We'll be at war with every name on that list. Elijah doesn't hesitate. Then we do it. No more half measures. The rain outside intensifies, a steady drumbeat against the roof. It feels like the calm before a storm, the air heavy with the weight of what's about to come. In the flickering light of the safe house, the three of them lean over the map, plotting the next move in a battle that's no longer just about one corrupt cop, but about dismantling the entire rotten structure that protected him. The rain has turned into a full storm by the time Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle finalize the release plan. The safe house is dim, lit only by the glow of multiple screens, each connected to encrypted channels and burner accounts. Outside, the wind howls, rattling the shutters like impatient fists. It's the perfect cover for what they're about to do. Jenna double-checks the encryption keys before she speaks. Once I hit send, there's no undo button. We'll be exposing years of corruption, payoffs, falsified reports, names that reach far beyond Davis. Some of these people have political clout, others have criminal muscle. Carlisle nods slowly, his eyes scanning the city map pinned to the wall. Good. Let them all feel the heat. This isn't just about one bad cop. This is about every hand that fed him, protected him, and kept him untouchable. Elijah sits at the edge of the table, his fingers drumming in that familiar rhythm, the same one that carried through the piano performance that started all of this. When this goes public, the city will split in two. Some will stand with us, others will call it fake. But the ones in power, they'll come out swinging. Jenna clicks through the final file. High-resolution scans of secret bank transfers, signed affidavits from whistleblowers, time-stamped body cam footage that was lost by the department but recovered through back channels. Each document is a nail in the coffin of the machine that kept Davis afloat. Carlisle glances at his watch. Make sure the first drop hits the West Coast feed. We want it spreading nationwide before the East Coast wakes up. If it's already viral by sunrise, they won't be able to bury it. At exactly 10:12 p.m., Jenna exhales and taps the final key. The files are mirrored instantly to multiple platforms, routed through anonymous servers. Within 60 seconds, the first download link is already being shared by late-night bloggers and investigative journalists known for taking on stories others are too scared to touch. On the other side of the city, a local TV producer gets an encrypted tip and clicks open the first file. His eyes widen as he realizes what he's reading. Names of city council members accepting bribes, police union leaders signing off on cover-ups, and Davis's own admission in a recorded call that he had leverage over anyone who crossed him. Within minutes, the producer forwards the file to his most trusted reporter. Back in the safe house, the first wave of reactions starts to trickle in. Anonymous accounts begin posting excerpts from the documents. Journalists request confirmation. A handful of city officials issue vague denials on social media. But the snowball is already rolling downhill, gaining size and speed with each retweet, each screenshot, each headline. Carlisle's phone vibrates again, this time with a secure message from a contact in the DA's office. "What did you just do? We've got half the council calling for an emergency session tomorrow." Elijah reads the message over Carlisle's shoulder. "Good, let them scramble." Jenna refreshes one of the live feeds. "We've got independent fact-checkers verifying the docs in real time. It's holding up. No major red flags so far." Carlisle grins for the first time in days. Then they can't spin it as a hoax. Not easily, anyway. By 11 p.m., the leak is the #1 trending topic in the city. News stations break into late-night programming with developing story banners. On one channel, a former deputy police chief, recently retired, sits under bright studio lights, visibly nervous as he admits that there may have been procedural issues in past investigations. On another, a city council member, his tie crooked and sweat on his forehead, insists the documents are fabrications designed to destabilize the city. His voice cracks as he says it. In a cramped newsroom across town, a group of young reporters argues over which angle to lead with. One wants to focus on the police misconduct, another on the political bribes, and a third on the mysterious source of the leak. None of them realize the source is 3 people huddled in a safe house watching it all unfold. But the backlash starts just as quickly. At 11:20 p.m., Carlisle's burner phone buzzes with a blocked call. He answers without speaking. A calm, measured voice fills the line. "You think you've done something noble, but you've just made yourself and your friends the highest priority targets in this city. Enjoy the spotlight while it lasts." The call ends. Carlisle sets the phone down slowly. That wasn't Davis. That was someone above him. Jenna's eyes dart to Elijah. They know exactly where this is coming from. We don't have long before they make a move. They decide to rotate safehouse locations. By midnight, they're moving through back streets slick with rain, headlights off, the only sound the hum of the engine and the hiss of water under the tires. Carlisle drives, Jenna navigates, and Elijah sits in the back, scanning the side mirrors for tails. As they approach the next hideout, a storage unit on the edge of an industrial district, Elijah's phone buzzes with a notification. It's a direct message from an unknown account. The text is short. "You missed one. Check the 4th page of the March 12th transfer." Jenna pulls out her laptop, connects through a hotspot, and opens the file in question. Her eyes widen. They're right. There's a 4th page, hidden metadata, another account number, offshore, and it's not just Davis, it links to the mayor. The room falls silent. The storm outside seems to pause for a moment, as if the city itself is holding its breath. Elijah leans forward, his voice low. "Then this just became bigger than we ever imagined." Dawn barely breaks through the thick clouds over the city, painting the skyline in muted grays. The storm from last night has left the streets slick, reflecting the early morning traffic lights like red and gold streaks across wet asphalt. Inside the industrial storage unit they're using as a temporary safehouse, the air is heavy with the smell of damp concrete and burnt coffee. Elijah hasn't slept. He sits at a folding table, staring at the printouts Jenna made overnight, every page of the March 12th transfer file laid out in precise order. The hidden metadata on the 4th page glows in his mind like a beacon, an offshore account number routed through 3 shell corporations, all leading to one undeniable name, Mayor Leonard Hargrave. Carlisle enters from the adjoining storage bay, shaking off the cold. "We've confirmed it," he says without preamble. "The offshore account was opened 3 years ago. The deposits match the exact timeline of the police union payoffs we've already documented." Hargrave's fingerprints are all over this. Jenna swivels her chair toward them, her laptop open to a half-written draft. "If we release this now, it blows the story wide open. But it also paints a target on our back so big, we might as well put up billboards." Elijah rubs the back of his neck. "It's not just Hargrave. This connects the mayor's office to every piece of rot we've uncovered. It ties the performance night, Davis's harassment, the cover-ups, everything into a single chain." Carlisle sets down a thermos of coffee with a dull thud. which means they'll stop at nothing to keep it buried. The mayor isn't just some corrupt official, he's the face of the city. The second we link him to this, the machinery that's been protecting Davis turns into a war machine aimed directly at us. At 6:17 a.m., Jenna's secure messaging app pings. The sender is one of her most trusted newsroom contacts, a veteran political editor with a reputation for knowing which way the wind is blowing before anyone else. The message reads, "Hargrave knows. He's going on air at 8:00. Expect him to frame this as an attack on public safety. They're prepping character assassinations on all three of you." Jenna's hands hover over the keyboard. If we wait until after his broadcast, he controls the narrative. We need to be ahead of him. Elijah shakes his head. We can't just dump it raw. We need context, proof, and a way to cut through whatever lies he's about to tell. Carlisle thinks for a moment, then says, "We give it to 3 outlets at once. Different angles, different audiences. One gets the financial trail, one gets the political corruption, and one gets the personal testimony from the whistleblowers. That way, even if he tries to crush one outlet, the others keep it alive." Jenna's already typing. "I can have the files packaged in under 30 minutes, but once they're out, there's no going back." Outside, a delivery truck rumbles past, splashing water onto the curb. Inside, tension coils tighter with every tick of the clock. Elijah finds himself tapping that same soft rhythm on the table, the piano cadence that's become his unconscious signal of thought. He remembers the night on stage, Davis smirking from the crowd, the way the keys felt under his fingers. That performance had turned into a moment of defiance. This would be the same, just louder, bigger, irreversible. Carlisle checks his watch again. "We've got 90 minutes before Hargrave goes live. Let's move." By 7:00 a.m., 3 encrypted packages are sent to 3 separate newsrooms. Each one contains the same raw data, but with tailored framing. The Chronicle gets the financial trail, spreadsheets, transaction IDs, and bank confirmations. The Sentinel receives the political angle, memos, emails, and internal communications implicating the mayor's staff. The Free Voice is given the human side, interviews, sworn affidavits, and the story of Elijah's harassment, tying it directly to the corrupt chain of command. Jenna hits send on the last package and leans back in her chair. That's it, the fuse is lit. At 7:22 a.m., the Chronicle posts the first piece online. The headline is simple, stark, impossible to ignore. Mayor Hargrave implicated in police payoff scandal. Within minutes, screenshots spread across social media. Comments flood in, some furious, some incredulous, some defensive of Hargrave's long record of service. By 7:35 a.m., the Sentinel's article goes live. The combination of outlets makes it impossible for the mayor's office to dismiss it as a fringe attack. The Free Voice begins uploading short video clips from whistleblowers, each one describing patterns of intimidation, falsified reports, and threats from above. Carlisle watches the 3 feeds at once, his jaw tight. He's cornered now. Let's see how he plays it. At 8:00 a.m. sharp, Hargrave steps in front of the cameras in the ornate press room at City Hall. He wears a dark suit and the same calm, authoritative smile that's won him 3 terms in office. "Good morning," he begins, his voice steady. "I'm here to address the baseless accusations being circulated by individuals with a personal vendetta against this administration and our brave men and women in uniform." He calls the documents fabrications, the witnesses disgruntled, and the journalists reckless agents of case. But as he speaks, the feeds from the Chronicle, the Sentinel, and the Free Voice continue to climb in viewership. At 8:14 a.m., something unexpected happens. One of the major morning networks cuts away from Hargrave's live speech to interview a financial crimes expert. The expert confirms that the offshore account data matches known laundering patterns and says the evidence would be enough to trigger a federal inquiry. Carlisle smiles faintly. He's losing control of the narrative. By 8:30 a.m., the city is split down the middle, streets buzzing with conversation, social media feeds in overdrive, and newsrooms scrambling to keep up. But for Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle, the fight isn't over. If anything, it's about to hit its most dangerous stage. Because when you take down a man like Hargrave, the fall doesn't happen quietly. It happens with noise, fury, and people getting hurt along the way. And they all know Davis is still out there, watching, waiting for his turn to strike back. The city feels different now. You can hear it in the way people talk at crosswalks, in the sudden hush that falls in coffee shops when the mayor's name comes up. The story is everywhere, 3 different outlets running it in relentless rotation, social media tearing it apart, dissecting every bank statement, every leaked memo. But Elijah knows that exposure alone won't end this. The mayor still has his loyalists, his machine, and most dangerously, Officer Davis. By early afternoon, City Hall is under siege, figuratively and almost literally. Protesters gather at the steps, chanting for Hargrave's resignation. Signs with Elijah's face and the words, "Let him play," wave above the crowd. News vans line the streets. From inside the temporary safe house, Elijah, Jenna, and Carlisle watch the coverage, each of them knowing the next move could decide everything. Carlisle checks his phone. Court session starts in an hour. They've fast-tracked it after the federal inquiry announcement. That means Hargrave and Davis will be in the same building as us. Elijah exhales slowly, his fingers unconsciously tapping out a rhythm on the table. Then we make our stand there. No more hiding. No more letting them control the stage. Jenna looks up from her laptop. "You're talking about playing again, aren't you?" He nods. "Not for them, for the record, for the jury, for everyone who still thinks this is just politics." By 2:45 p.m., the courthouse steps are packed. Security lines stretch down the block, and the sound of chanting carries all the way inside. The main courtroom is bigger than Elijah expected, but every seat is filled. Press in the back, city officials scattered through the rows, and in the front, Hargrave flanked by his legal team, Davis sitting stiffly at his side. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes, calls the room to order. Federal investigators present their findings, tying Hargrave directly to the offshore account. The evidence is damning, but the defense tries to spin it as misinterpreted and politically motivated. Davis shifts uncomfortably every time Elijah's name comes up. Then, unexpectedly, the judge turns toward Elijah. "Mr. Brooks, I understand you've requested to address the court in an unconventional manner?" Elijah stands. "Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to play something, just for a few minutes." The judge studies him for a long moment before nodding. "Proceed." The courtroom falls silent as Elijah crosses to the small upright piano brought in for evidence purposes. Ironically, the same one from the community center where Davis had humiliated him just days before. He sits, adjusts the bench, and places his hands on the keys. The first notes are soft, almost hesitant, but they carry. The melody is one he wrote years ago, after his father died. A piece about loss, truth, and the weight of silence. Each chord swells, building on the last, weaving sorrow into defiance. He doesn't look at Hargrave or Davis. He plays for the people in the back, for the reporters scribbling notes, for the citizens who will hear this later and understand. By the third movement, the room is transfixed. Even the judge leans forward slightly, and then, in the final passage, Elijah shifts the tone, still solemn but resolute, with a cadence that speaks of endings and justice. The last note hangs in the air for a long, breathless moment before fading. No one claps, no one moves, but in that stillness, Elijah can feel the shift. The jury has felt it, the press has felt it. Even Davis looks away, unable to meet his eyes. The remainder of the hearing moves quickly. The prosecution lays out its closing points. The defense stumbles, trying to patch over the emotional blow Elijah's performance delivered. At 5:15 p.m., the verdict is read. Leonard Hargrave, guilty on multiple counts of corruption, fraud, and abuse of office. Officer Davis, guilty of misconduct, harassment, and obstruction of justice. The crowd outside erupts when the news hits. Chants turn into cheers, and by the time Hargrave and Davis are led out in handcuffs, cameras flash like fireworks. By 6:20 p.m., Elijah is back on the courthouse steps, not hiding behind security, but standing in the open. A small group has gathered around him. Neighbors, supporters, strangers who saw the video and came to thank him. Someone calls out, "Play something for us," and before he can answer, a portable keyboard is set on the steps. He smiles, sits, and begins to play, not the somber piece from court, but something brighter, lighter. The sound carries over the crowd, mixing with the fading chants. People stop in the street to listen. Some film, others just stand with eyes closed, letting the music wash over them. When he finishes, the mayor is no longer in office. Davis is no longer in uniform, and the city, for the first time in years, feels like it belongs to its people again. That night, as the sun sets behind the skyline, Elijah walks home alone. He passes by the now empty plaza where the protests had been. The wet pavement still glistens under the streetlights. He thinks about his father, about the humiliation Davis had tried to make permanent, and about how his music, had turned it all around. Justice didn't come easy. It never does. But it came. And sometimes Elijah realizes the most powerful thing you can do in the face of corruption is not to shout louder than your enemies, it's to make them listen.